We are ready to go live.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the San Rafael City Council, meeting of Monday, June 1st, 2020. And I'll begin with the roll call from City Clerk.
Councilmember Bushy.
Present.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Present.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Present.
Councilmember McCullough.
Present.
Mayor Phillips.
Present. Invite the City Clerk to address how the comments will be addressed this evening. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This meeting is being streamed live to YouTube, where viewers can provide comments in the live chat or are welcome to attend by telephone by calling 669-900-9128 with the meeting ID of 874-0826-8927 #. If you're watching on YouTube and you wish to comment on topics that are not on tonight's agenda, please submit your comments now and they'll be read into the record shortly during open time. If you are participating over the phone and you wish to have public comments heard, please press *9 when the mayor invites public comments. When it's your time to speak, you will hear a notification that you've been unmuted and you will have 2 minutes to speak. If you are submitting comments on YouTube to be read aloud into the record, please write public comment in caps, introduce yourself, and then submit your comments. Please note that there is a character limit on YouTube, so please submit your comments in groups. Additionally, as I mentioned, if you're planning on speaking to the City Council on matters not on tonight's agenda, please do that now. If you've submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, they've been forwarded to the City Council and published to our website. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The City Council met with the City Attorney in closed session. I'll ask if there's any reportable action.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. No reportable action was taken in closed session.
Thank you. We'll now turn to open time for public expression and opportunity for you to address us on matters that aren't on this evening's agenda that you wish to bring to our attention, and certainly we welcome those comments.
So if you are participating by telephone and you wish to speak, please press *9 now. And while I wait for those to press *9, I will also be asking folks who are participating on YouTube to provide their comments in the live chat. We do have some callers.
Yes. Hi, this is Barry, Toronto. Good evening, and appreciate the opportunity to speak. I first want to say that the phone number you're providing for us is not a toll-free number. So you actually are excluding people that have landlines or are going to have to pay a lot of money to participate this way. Other public comments that I've given and participated in other meetings actually provide a toll-free number. The next issue is, this is my way of protest regarding the death of George Floyd and the others. Thank God that we're not getting the violence and the protests like this, but it has to happen because the police are ignoring the fact that their behavior helps create this situation. They have to take some responsibility. And it is very sad today that the police have not taken the initiative to do the reforms to do better relations with people of color and minorities. It's really sad. Luckily here, we have leadership at the top of the police department who's hired with diversity. However, we still have to use this as a sign to ask our police chief, what are they doing to better train officers in dealing with communities of diversity? I really think it's a major issue, and it should be a wake-up call for our city to do something like that. So I appreciate you taking the time. The next issue is regarding Terra Linda. I think it should be considered a priority development area. I'm one of the few, maybe the lots of people of the silent majority that actually would like to either see a Costco or maybe even see some housing in the Northgate area. It's really a shame that it's still vacant and it's dead there. I drive by there and it's so quiet. We need to do something with that area, especially with the fact that transportation is readily available in that area, and that which we should take advantage of the fact that people can use transportation there. So I urge you to not waste your time in trying to do something and urge that there's development in that area. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to watch online and do public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Anyone else?
I do.
Okay.
Hi, this is Salama Locks, San Rafael's Commissioner on Aging, and I have an update for you. I did send in a flyer because I wanted everybody to know that Dr. Larry Brilliant is going to be our speaker on Thursday at 10 o'clock, and it's by Zoom. And I don't know if you guys can show the Zoom address rather than me spelling it all out, but there's also a dial-up number, which is 1-669-900-6833. We want everybody to tune in, the community to tune on, whatever, and hear what Dr. Brilliant has to say about the COVID virus as its relationship to older adults, and specifically. We are taking questions. If people would like to send in questions, they can send their questions into the area Age on Aging, or they can call the 415-457 info number, and they can get more information if we are unable to show the Zoom address on your presentation. So anyway, we want lots of people to tune in and hear what he has to say and ask questions. That's all for me. Thank you.
And thank you.
I do have one other comment.
Oh.
I dialed in. I'm viewing you on my laptop, and there's a time gap between what I hear on my phone and what you're actually. Oh, thank you. You put it up there.
We did.
Scroll down to the bottom. Can everybody see that?
We could see it. Yes. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah. Okay. I hope people who are watching can see it, because the main information is at the bottom for how they log on. But anyway, there's a delay between. I hear you on the phone, and then there's a delay with the visual. So when I have them both sounds on, it's really confusing. So I have to turn my phone off in order to hear what you're saying. It's kind of strange that way. There's a delay.
And
so I wanted you to know that. Okay.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye now.
And also just a heads up for anyone who's experiencing that delay, if they refresh their YouTube, it should be about a second.
So yes, my name's David Weckler. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment. Thank you for making this possible. I wanted to make a comment about the, 7-unit building at Shaver and 3rd Street that's planned.
David, I don't want to cut you off, but that is an agenda item, so it might be more appropriate to add your comment when we get to that item.
Okay, I'll do that. I was trying to look at the agenda. I'm a little bit new to this, so I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
I see no other hands raised in our call. There is a public comment from George Jackson. Please open now. In a county of 250,000, 9 hospitalized at the height of COVID, it is wrong to remain closed. This is crushing people's souls. Show courage, follow science, open. And there's one more coming. My name is Sunny Lee. I'd like to express my neighborhood's deep concerns on the repeated homeless encampment at 225 Picnic Avenue. This undeveloped property expands from Picnic Avenue all the way up the hills of Southern Heights Boulevard, Martins Avenue Ridgeline. Please find an ordinance. Please find an ordinance to keep this property free of overgrown vegetation and homeless people continue to reside there for over last 25 years. Please have the fire department survey this property as dry grass and Scotch brooms are overgrown here and could be a severe fire hazard to our community. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. We will now turn to the city manager's report. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have 3 updates tonight. I have a quick design review board announcement, and then I've asked Chief Diana Bishop to say a few words about the protests that are going on in many cities. And I wanted to conclude with a COVID-19 update. First, on the design review board, we are recruiting applications to fill a vacant position on the DRB. The design review board's scope is to review and make recommendations on design matters such as architecture, mass, building, site planning, colors, materials, landscaping, that sort of thing. And the group meets on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of each month at 7 p.m. Or at least they did before we had a shelter in place, but they'll be returning to that schedule. And for those that want to apply, you can do it online at the city's website, which is cityofsanrafael.org, and then it's /boards-commissions. And just because that's a little complicated, I've asked the city clerk to put that link in the chat as well in case people want to see that. It's cityofsanrafael.org /boards-and-commissions. The next update will be from Chief Bishop regarding the protests that are going on in many cities and how San Rafael is responding. And then, Chief, if you could turn it back to me afterwards, and I'll do a quick coronavirus update.
Chief, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you for Jim to giving me some of his time to talk about something that's, I think, foremost and forefront on every person in this country's mind, which is the awful death at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department of George Floyd and the reverberations that we're feeling around our country because of that death. I put a statement out last Friday saying that I couldn't even really find the words to say how sickening it was to watch that and to know that that person who did that act and those people who did nothing wear the same uniform that I and my department do, but we couldn't be any more different than those officers in that video. Our department is highly trained. California law enforcement is one of the highest trained in the whole country. We have been doing bias-based police training since 2003, and we do it annually. And we are a leader in de-escalation classes and techniques as well. We treat everyone with respect and equally, and we are all sickened by the manner in which Mr. Floyd died. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, I said it in writing the other day, but saying it verbally it's more powerful to me. To talk to Jim's point, we have seen some civil unrest and some wonderful protests as well, using people's First Amendment rights throughout the Bay Area. And we have been supportive of that, including a couple or 3 this weekend in San Rafael. And we will continue to support peaceful protests. We are, however, trying to help out our fellow law enforcement agencies who have had some struggles this past few nights. So we deployed several officers to Oakland on Friday night and several more to Emeryville on Saturday night and more to Oakland last night. And we were on standby to go help Santa Rosa with some issues we didn't have to go. But we are not immune, and we're not in a bubble in Marin. And we have seen that some of the looting, which is really, I think, nothing to do with protesting what the core issue is, which is the unnecessary use of force by police officers. The looting is spilling into other Bay Area communities, and we are seriously monitoring that. All of the agencies in Marin are doing that to make sure that we have a unified response to try to protect our business owners and our residents, and getting the best intelligence we can. So we have the right equipment, we have the right training, we have the right personnel with the right mindsets to use the minimal force necessary, but we are not going to accept the people coming into our community and looting and vandalizing our community. So that's kind of as a whole what we're doing, but we are sickened as everyone else by the events, and we just want to all get through this and have no more people injured.
And Jim, just a quick comment. I couldn't endorse more what the chief has just presented in terms of the wonderful and capable force that we have, police force that we have, well trained, well disciplined, but certainly follows the tone established by you and the chief, and certainly I would suggest virtually all of the city employees. Chief, I think you stated it extremely well. The community is grateful for what you and the officers are doing, particularly in these most difficult times. I can't imagine, quite frankly, being in your shoes. It's a challenge, but certainly you're up for it. And again, the community, and I would suggest each of our council members, certainly representing our community, are thankful for what you've done to address this most difficult issue, and we support you and certainly your department full steam. So thank you so much for what you've done, and will continue to do.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to echo that as well. I appreciate the Chief of Police and also all of our police officers. I know how hard they work every day to try to be the type of police department that is exactly what our community wants them to be. So couldn't be more proud of them. And thank you, Chief, very much for giving that update tonight.
Thank you for allowing me.
I'm going to move on to our COVID-19 update. And we're beginning our 12th week in our coronavirus response and operating our city's Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. And as you all know, that's where we do kind of disaster response at the same time that we're doing normal city functions. I was asked this week to play a video from the County Health Officer, Dr. Willis. And I wanted to lead off by doing that now. And ask the city clerk to play it. It's an update on the Marin Recovers process and the reopening plan. It's being shown at council meetings in other Marin cities and towns. And so I wanted to show it here as well. And also then I'll give you some highlights from our EOC over the last few days after the video. So.
Hi, I'm Matt Willis, Public Health Officer for Marin County. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on our reopening process and the Marin Recovers Industry Advisors Initiative. The past 2 months have been painful for all of us as we've tried to find a way to live with COVID-19 in our environment. As we take steps to reopen and regain some of what we've missed most, I want to share some important information about the next steps. First, I want to thank everyone across the county for doing their part to help us complete phase 1 of our pandemic response successfully. Between mid-March, when we were seeing rapid growth in cases regionally, and now you flattened the curve when significant surges were predicted. Your response to the first phase in Marin has given us time to build our systems to manage COVID-19 in the months to come and begin the delicate process of reopening. At the same time, we know the virus is part of our environment, and we're at risk of losing the gains we've achieved. Navigating decisions about how and when to reopen safely requires a whole new level of communication and collaboration between public health and sectors across our community. Marin Recovers Industry Advisors brings businesses and public services together to respond to these challenges with a focus on both public and economic health. 17 different industry groups were brought together to advise on our rebuilding process, to develop standards and guidelines to follow as we sequentially and thoughtfully reopen over time. MarinRecovers.com is the website that provides all of us with the information we need about recovery and reopening, and includes the members of all the teams and industry groups that led the process. MarinRecovers.com is the best source of information for recovery and reopening. On the public health side, here are some important considerations. First, our ability to continue our sequential reopening is based on our actual local experience of the epidemic. There's a lot of variability across the state and how different communities are impacted. Marin is part of the core Bay Area counties that have been hit hard by this pandemic. Marin is in the top 20 in overall case rates and in the top 10 for death rates among California's 58 counties. This is important to remember as we see other communities, many who have almost no cases, moving more quickly through the reopening. Our neighboring counties to the north have much lower rates than we do. Also, remember the state shelter-in-place order sets the floor for what's allowable. Our choices in terms of reopening are limited to what the governor allows at each stage. Here's how we'll know how we're doing in Marin. With the core Bay Area counties, we establish key indicators to track our progress. We're watching cases and hospitalization rates and tracking our capacity for testing, contact tracing, PPE for healthcare workers, and hospital beds. Our performance in these is available on the Marin Recovers website. We've been working hard with our healthcare partners to build capacity, and following these indicators, we're ready to engage in phase 2. Any questions or suggestions regarding the reopening process can be directed to MarinRecovers.com website, and staff members will respond. Your city and town leadership will also use the Marin County Council of Mayors and Councilmembers Economic Recovery Committee to share your input and concerns. Finally, I want to say, as your public health officer, that more important than any of these policies in terms of what opens and when is your own behavior. My greatest concern is that people might misinterpret decisions to reopen as a sign that it's safe or that the virus is gone. In fact, we are more at risk now because we will be interacting more while the virus is still circulating. It's never been more important to cover your face when you're out, keep 6 feet apart as much as possible, wash your hands regularly, and seek COVID-19 testing if you develop symptoms through your medical provider. We've seen what we can accomplish when we move together and stay connected around goals we all share. We'll be relying on that same spirit to tackle this next phase. Marin will recover together.
Okay, so that video was prepared at the request of Vice Mayor Collin to update our community on the Marin Recovers process and the reopening plan. So I'm going to go from there and share some highlights from our Emergency Operations Center over the past few days. The big news this week is that of today, new guidelines went into effect allowing outdoor retail, office space openings, curbside pickup at libraries, summer camps, and coastal parks and beaches allowed to open should they choose to do so. And the county has also authorized jurisdictions to, quote, pilot outdoor dining. So we have been working at the City of San Rafael to open the downtown and the Pickleweed libraries for curbside pickup starting on Wednesday of this week. So just another couple days, and will be available for curbside pickup. We've been getting information on how that works out to the community this week. On tonight's agenda, there's an item intended to expedite and support our businesses in their opening of outdoor retail and outdoor dining, now that that's allowable as of today. The goal is to be flexible and create a business-friendly environment to support businesses through this massively difficult time of uncertainty and changing rules. We've been coordinating with all the other Marin cities and towns who are putting the same sorts of things in place and trying to reopen up businesses. Because of our larger city size and assumed high interest from business, we've created a new type of permit at the end of last week that is automatically given at no cost. I just felt like I should repeat that. It's an automatic permit and no cost. You get it go online, and by the time you spend a few minutes filling out the page, you have your permit. And that's if the business can meet the base standards, like if you want to be able to do outdoor dining or outdoor retail in front of your business, and you want to do it in a kind of a general way, and there's room for through traffic and things like that on the sidewalk, you can get an automatic no-cost permit. If it's a little bit more complicated at your location, or you want to use a street parking space or close the street or something like that, then we want to be working directly with those businesses. We're partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District, and we want to make sure that that works for businesses throughout our entire city as well. We'll do those permits also with no application fee. County Health has telegraphed that it's possible that indoor retail, personnel services, and outdoor faith-based services are the next things that are likely to come online with some restrictions starting on June 15th. We haven't seen any draft guidance on those yet, but we expect that those will be the next things that we see after this period right now where we're doing outdoor retail and outdoor dining. We're hearing that the next up is indoor retail and personal services and outdoor faith-based services. All of the guidance for things that are allowed right now is available at marinrecovers.com. I also saw that the governor signed an executive order that extends the expiration date for eviction moratoriums that jurisdictions or counties are allowed to work off of through July 28th. So just recently, the County of Marin extended the date throughout Marin County until June 30th. And this new executive order would allow the Board of Supervisors to consider a further extension of that for another month. So I'm sure that'll be something that cities and towns will weigh in on and the board will be considering. Unfortunately, there wasn't very much news this week on potential state or federal budgets or legislation that would impact and provide financial assistance to the city. As you know, through our coronavirus economic recovery plan, that we have a close to a $12 million budget deficit based on the revenue losses. So we're very closely tracking different types of legislation and stimulus. But we are preparing our annual budget for your very next council meeting on June 15th, assuming no kind of state or federal assistance at this time, because there is none that we're able to rely on. Also, I wanted to make sure the community knows that the testing availability in Marin County has increased significantly. It's actually tripled recently. And we've been encouraging more people to get tested, even if they're without symptoms now, if they are employees that are having frequent contact with the public, you're doing a job or essential employee that's coming into contact with the public a lot. If you're ill or if you've had contact with someone who has COVID-19, you're able to get testing very easily now in several locations throughout Marin County. And then just lastly, we continue to do my snapshot newsletter, and we send out the San Rafael is Resilient news updates a few times a week. Our website is still a great source of information for everything that I just said. It's cityofsanrafael.org/coronavirus, and all of the county information is at coronavirus.marinhhs.org. So I just wanted to provide that update. We're excited to see some restrictions lifted. We're excited to see outdoor retail and outdoor businesses coming online. And we'll have a little bit more information on that later on your agenda tonight. So thank you very much.
Excuse me. Thank you, Jim. And just two quick things. I did have a test about 2 weeks ago. It was relatively painless, and the results were in the next day. So I would encourage those that are so inclined to consider the test itself. In my case, it came back negative, which is a good thing. Second, I've received quite a bit of input and comments, if you will, from many within San Rafael, business in particular, with regard to the closure and the pace of which businesses are reopening. And my comment has been consistent that I understand their situation. I've been in business myself. Having said that, I'm fully supportive of Dr. Matt Willis and his approach and his tempo. I think he is the best equipped to make the judgment call that at least I'm comfortable with, and I think it's fair to say that we collectively are comfortable with. I think he's doing a wonderful job and a real servant to our community. So I'm appreciative of his efforts and certainly support him in those calls. Not everybody's going to agree with the pace, of course. That's human nature. But I, for one, am quite satisfied that he's going about this in a rational way, and I once again, I appreciate that. So let's move on to the consent calendar, of which we have items 4A through 4H. I'll ask if anyone wishes to have an item held. Seeing none, I'll ask for public comment with regard to these items, any particular item, before we vote on the collection. Anyone?
Thank you. If you are participating by telephone and you wish to speak on an item on the consent calendar, please press *9. And if you are participating through YouTube, please submit your chat comment now, and I'll wait just a little bit. I'm seeing no comments being posted in YouTube, and I see no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Council members, any comments with regard to these items, or if not, then a motion would be appropriate for the collection.
I move the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second.
Move in second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0. Move on to the public hearing. 5A, approval of a 7-unit multifamily residential building at 104 Shaver Street.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Phillips. Good evening, council members. This project, this appeal is a culmination of a public review process that began with a conceptual design review and pre-application, and then was followed by the formal application in mid-2019, and that included 3 DRB meetings and a planning commission hearing. So tonight, Steve Stafford, our senior planner, will give you a presentation on the project, the background, and the appeal points. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rafi. I wanted to wish a good evening to both Mayor Phillips and the council members. Staff has put together a PowerPoint presentation to help provide more of an overview of how we've got to this point on this project. Apologize, I'm having some technical difficulties. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So somebody's disabled it.
Steve, I've just went ahead and made you co-host. You should be able to share screen right now.
Thank you.
There, isn't it in the right-hand corner there, Steve? Is that your presentation?
PowerPoint. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it is. Thank you.
And just hit slide.
There you go, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties. So tonight, once again, this is the 104 Shaver Street project. It's an appeal before you. This is a new 7-unit multifamily residential apartment building in the downtown. It includes both an affordable unit at the very low income household level, as well as an ADA accessible housing unit. The project is proposing a state density bonus based on providing the affordable unit. They are eligible for up to 3 density bonuses. They are asking for 1 density bonus tonight. Also, in addition to asking for the density bonus, they're asking for 2 automatic concessions. Now, once again, they're allowed up to 3 concessions, but they're asking for 2. These include both a reduced street side yard setback from 10 feet to 8 feet, and to increase the maximum lot coverage from 60% to 65%. Does require a design review permit in addition to for the actual structure itself, but it also requires a use permit. The project is asking for parking modifications, both a reduction in the required parking. It is required to have 8 parking spaces. They're asking for a elimination of the guest parking. So they'll be netting a space per unit. However, the guest spaces would be removed. Increase the maximum percentage of compact parking is also asked for, from 30% maximum to a 50% maximum, and that equates to from 2 spaces to 4 spaces. Variances are also requested to reduce the garage setback from the requirement of 20 feet to 15 feet, so it would match the building setback. And this is along Shaver Street, by the way. That's the elevation. Also, it's asking for a reduction in the interior side yard setback from 5 feet required to 0. This was actually a recommendation from the Design Review Board to allow the applicant and the project to have greater mobility within the garage so they could actually turn vehicles around and it would not require them to back out onto Shaver Street. The project site is challenging in many ways. It's triangular shape, which allows for only 2 long sides and also a very, very short side. The short side, of course, is on Shaver Street. It's also in a transitional location. You have commercial that's on the east side, on the north, on the south, and it's directly across the street from the single family and duplex residential neighborhood directly west of the project site. It's also located on 3rd Street, which we all know is a busy arterial corridor. Project was reviewed 3 times from the Design Review Board. Early in last year, it had conceptual review. The comments made, you can read about them in staff's report. Later on last year in December, it came in for formal review by the board, who continued it, and then was reviewed once again in February of this year after revisions were made. And at that time, the board unanimously recommended approval of the site and building design. Earlier this year in April, the Planning Commission reviewed the project and unanimously approved the design review permit, the use permit, and the variances, subject to conditions, and with the added condition that all garage parking spaces be pre-wired to allow for future installation of level 2 EV charging stations. Within the appeal period of the approval, 3 appeals were actually submitted. One did not provide the fees, the required fees, so we have a co-appeal. These appeal points are that there's traffic safety impacts, there are public parking impacts around the neighborhood, and the flooding impacts that will be created from this project. There has been a large amount of public comments provided this planning staff since the appeal. At the moment of this hearing, staff counted 93 comments received by staff, 89 of which were in opposition and 4 were in support. Some of these comments, it should be noted, were provided from outside the immediate neighborhood of the project and some even outside the city of San Rafael. A majority of these comments that are opposed to the project are focused on the same concerns as the appeal points, primarily traffic safety and parking impacts, though there are some additional concerns regarding whether the design is out of scale with the residential neighborhood located directly west of the site. In response to appeal point 1, which is the traffic safety, the project has been coordinated with the Public Works Department with redesigns to mitigate potential traffic impacts. Some of the things that were done were the project located the driveway as far from the Shaver 3rd Street intersection as possible. In addition, they eliminated a curb cut and driveway off of 3rd Street elevation, as well as incorporate on-site expansion of the garage to allow for on-site turnaround in the garage. Project is consistent with all applicable development standards, subject to the requested concessions under the state density bonus law, the parking modifications, and the variances. Conditions included for traffic safety include requiring a confirmation that the monument site and landscaping meets the safe site distance requirements. In addition, there's a requirement that any garage gate include a remote activation to prevent unnecessary queuing along the Shaver Street frontage. Both the Public Works Traffic and Engineering Divisions have recommended approval of the project design, subject to these conditions. In response to the appeal point number 2, which is the parking and how this impacts the public parking in the neighborhood. The parking required for this project is 8 spaces. It includes a space for each unit plus a guest parking space. Based on the parking modification requested, it would eliminate the guest parking space. Parking modifications requested would eliminate, and in response to the elimination of the guest parking spaces, the project would provide these offsets. One would be increase of secured bicycle parking in the garage. It's required to provide a short-term bicycle parking for a rack for 2 bicycles. Instead, this project is going to provide 6 long-term secured bike parking within the garage of the site. Both the downtown parking and wayfinding study, it allowed this reduction for parking by increasing the bike parking on site. This was codified in the parking code, and now it's in there as well. As required, both the Public Works and the Community Development Directors have both recommended approval of the parking modification. In response to appeal point 3, which is the flooding concerns, Public Works crews worked tirelessly to clear seasonal blockage of the city's storm drainage system. A geotechnical report, which was provided as an attachment to staff's report, determined that the project did have existing subsurface groundwater on the site, but the project would not affect the grading or construction required for this project, as long as the provided recommendations were implemented and followed. The project currently meets both flood hazard and stormwater runoff requirements from McStop. In conclusion, staff would like to make the following observations. This is a challenging transitional site, both in the location of where it is in the city, on the cusp within a commercial district, with commercial surrounding it, and with a historical single family and duplex residential neighborhood directly to the west, but also in its configuration, in the triangular configuration. It happens to be located directly below a housing opportunity site at 220 Shaver Street, which is a little less than an acre that would allow up to a base density of 41 residential units. And by meeting the city's affordable housing requirement, could net an additional 15 density bonus units for a total of 56 units on that site. While this site is not it's far too small to be considered a housing opportunity site, but nonetheless, it is an adjacent to a housing opportunity site in the general plan. There are general plan policies that require multifamily residential projects to be approved in the mid to high density range. This, at 7 units, is at its high density. It's asking for its maximum density of 6 units, and then it gets the density bonus of 1 additional unit. The project proposes to construct apartment buildings, apartment units in the downtown at the high end of this allowable density range. Project provides both an ADA affordable housing unit and also a ADA accessible unit, which will add to the city's housing inventory. Project revisions have been incorporated to allow for better or improved garage maneuverability, site landscaping, unit storage, secured bicycle parking, and providing a greater sense of entry to the building itself, to the units itself. The Community Development and the Public Works Directors support the requested parking modification to reduce the parking and increase the compact parking on the site. The Design Review Board recommends approval of the site and building design as presented to both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council this evening. And the Planning Commission unanimously approved the project, finding that the project generally complies with the applicable general plan policies, the development standards in the HR, the high density residential district, the review criteria for environmental and design review permits, the San Rafael design guidelines, the adopted good design principles, and the findings necessary to approve the requested design review permit, the use permit, and the variances. That concludes staff's brief presentation. We're here to, staff is here to answer any questions that the council may have. In addition, I believe both the applicant and the appellants are here and would like to make presentations as well. Thank you.
Try it again. Thank you for all the work you've done regarding this project. It's been extensive. We know by the volume of report that we received. My sort of overall question is that we've received a number of comments, 89, I think you said, that had some concerns or opposition to this particular project. So my question of you would be, having received that input, is there anything there that has changed your mind, staff's mind, with regard to the appropriateness of this project?
No, not at all. Staff continues to support this project. We believe, once again, that it meets all the findings necessary for the planning entitlements. In addition to, it's received the support of Department of Public Works. All the city departments that have reviewed this have all recommended approval. So, no, staff stands by the approval of this project.
Yeah, and thanks for that comment. Open it up for other comment, and then we'll turn to the public. Kate.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that report, Steve. I had a question. Some of the input that we received from the neighborhood gave very specific suggestions about parking, about changing some of the nearby parking to different standards, either 2 hours or longer. Can you comment on that? Because if that is a concern, maybe that's a way that some of the pressure could be relieved if this project were to go forward.
An excellent idea. I don't have anything specific. I'm hoping that either DPW or else parking could jump in there and provide some guidance on this as well.
I think that would be helpful.
Hi, Jim Myers here.
Great.
So one of the options is to look at time limited parking in that area. The concerns, however, are that would move, that could potentially move people who are parking there to different areas. But that would, like if we did a 4-hour parking, for example, that would allow residents to park there, having only moved their car potentially every 4 hours, and potentially discourage any people who are parking from the neighborhood or from the businesses associated with that. The problem with that, however, is that they would just potentially move into an adjoining neighborhood and create a similar problem, a short distance away.
So Jim, just to clarify, so what was that looked at? I mean, this is part of my neighborhood, so I know it very well, and it would move it. It might move it onto 4th Street. It might move it onto other areas that aren't neighborhoods, and just that it was a very specific request from more than one neighbor. That, and then maybe also, I see Rafat it too. If you could talk about the people's concerns about the 3rd Street corridor, which I know that we're doing some improvements, that would be great. Those would be my questions.
Good evening, Mayor Phillips and members of the City Council. I'd like to add some comments about this. The changing of the limits on the parking, on the street parking, I consider that an operational issue. It's something that can be easily fixed, and we can continue the dialogue with the residents to find the perfect balance for the neighborhood. I think the council is fully aware that we are doing a major redesign of the 3rd Street corridor, and the parking is one of the elements that we'll be looking at very carefully. So the answer is, I think it's an easy fix. I agree with Jim, however, about the shifting and the possible relocation of some parking. But we've done this for many years over the city, all over the city, and it's a manageable issue. Some of these parking regulations, they kind of get old and not appropriate anymore for the existing demand, and this is something that we can fix very easily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Andrew, Councilmember McCullough.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Did you mean me?
Yes, I mean you. Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you. So question, I guess, for Steve, and that is along 3rd Street, the north side of 3rd Street, approaching Shaver, as that right turn is going to be made. My understanding, at least upon reviewing the area, is that there is parking. There's a parking lane. However, the applicant, in the applicant's letter to the Planning Commission in April, indicated that there is no parking along 3rd Street there. Can you tell me which is the case?
Yes, there is a parking lane, and it is restricted. It's 2-hour restricted parking. So that was a misstatement during the Planning Commission's presentation by the applicant, I'm guessing.
So apart from the 2-hour restriction, though, there is parking that's available 7 days a week along that stretch of 3rd Street. Is that correct?
I don't know the specifics of where the parking is available. I just have been told by the Department of Public Works that there is street parking within the neighborhood, within the vicinity of the site. It may not be directly in front of the site. It may be several blocks away, but nonetheless, it's within reasonable distance to provide guest parking within the vicinity of the site.
Okay, and then my next question, my follow-up would be, I think, to Rafat or to any staff member who feels best equipped to reply as to the proposed, or at least as far as we can discern now, the proposed redesign of 3rd Street westbound in this vicinity. Are we going to see any changes in the parking? So, for example, and the issue I'm getting at here, and it goes to traffic safety, which for me is the most significant concern with this project, is that right now there presently is 2 lanes westbound, through lanes, and then there's a parking lane. When that parking lane is empty, it provides ample space to turn right onto Shaver without impeding traffic behind the turning car. If that parking lane is filled up, then the slowing of vehicles who wish to turn right on Shaver could potentially create, given the configuration of this street, it's a curving downhill road where cars tend to accelerate, could create more of a hazard potentially. That's certainly the complaint that I've read in the many comments that have come in. So do we know in the planning now for 3rd Street and its various iterations, is there going to be an effort to address safety there, and in particular this issue that's been raised by the appellant and the appellant's supporters about turning right and the availability of ample space to make that turn?
The answer is definitely yes. We are in the preliminary design stage of the 3rd Street, and safety improvements is on top of our priorities. Not just the vehicular safety and the turning vehicles and the speed calming that happens, but also to the pedestrian crossing, which I believe was mentioned in many of the comments as well. We've looked at least at 2 different options for the intersection so far, but there's going to be about 2 or 3 more that will be, and your comments and all of the residents' comments will be noted and be considered in the design consideration.
Rafat, just by way of illustration, and I'm not holding you to it as a specific example of what might end up at this intersection, but by way of illustration, can you describe what traffic calming measures might exist along the 3rd Street arterial westbound? Well, it's westbound, of course.
Well, there's a number of solutions. I think the first priority is to make sure that we have we reduce the time the pedestrian is exposed, or the pedestrian is on the asphalt, basically. That is number 1 priority. In terms of the number of lanes and the speed of the lane, the speed of the traffic, we don't have enough specific that I can describe a scenario. However, one of the scenario could involve the reconfiguration of the parking, on-street parking altogether. It might be advantageous to take a parking lane and make a neck down or a curb extension to make it easier for pedestrians and for pedestrians to be more visible. This is a priority safety, but we don't have at this time the exact design, and we can make a specific note to take it to the neighborhood, the specific design of this intersection, and have a transparent design exercise.
I apologize. I should have been more clear. I'm not asking you to provide a specific guidance on this intersection. Just can you explain, what does traffic calming mean? What is an example of a traffic calming measure?
Okay, the traffic calming measure on an arterial like this, it has to do with the width of the lanes and the configuration of the lanes, the design of the intersections, the design of the intersection on an arterial that is calmed down, that we take any extra width of the street and reappropriate it to the pedestrians. So if we have wide lanes, for example, that would encourage speed, if we make it just the appropriate 12-foot lane, we would have a calmed down street. Also, the visibility of the traffic signals are going to be greatly improved. The traffic signals right now, most of the heads are 8-inch. We're all going to be updated to the new code, which involves more lights and better, bigger 12-inch red indications. Traffic calming could be also involved with the signal timing. I mean, we can have signals that are coordinated in a much improved manner that would move traffic in a different speed that is currently running. So when you look at the traffic calming toolbox, there's what I mentioned: the pedestrian, the speed of the traffic, the visibility of the traffic, of vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to pedestrian. All of these elements are involved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gamlin.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Steve, and Rafat. This is probably going to come back to you as well. Is there a possibility when we're looking at the 3rd Street configuration? I know that we have red curbed that turn probably 2 car lengths where before the 2-hour parking starts. Is there a possibility that is there enough room as you're narrowing the lanes for calming to actually make a dedicated right turn lane there to get onto Shaver Street so that the traffic is coming off of 3rd Street, going into that turn lane before it turns onto Shaver, and maybe moving that parking back another 2 or 3 spaces so that it's easier to go into? Is that, again, I'm asking hypotheticals, but are these things going to be discussed? Because I know in the reports that we received and the appeal letters that we received, a lot of it is that turn. I went down and drove the site a few weeks ago and made that right turn. Granted, it wasn't super busy with nobody driving as much as now, but I was able to do it. But I could see that there could be the availability of put maybe a turn lane there.
The 3rd Street project is probably one of the largest projects that the city engaged in. And we definitely have the flexibility and the resources right now to make all sorts of considerations. And since this is being highlighted, I can assure you that the possibility of adding a lane will be evaluated thoroughly.
Great. And to you, Jim Myers, I would assume that the parking, and from what I could see, the parking on Shaver itself is not metered or timed. Only on 3rd Street, I think it's 2 hours from 9 to 6 p.m. and then it's available after 6 p.m. I wasn't able to discern from the concerns from the comments from the appellant and also from those who wrote in whether or not the need for parking is during a specific time? Is it after hours? If people in this neighborhood are working, does parking clear up during the day? So to, I think, Councilmember McCullough's question, if we change the timing on some of these things, would that really be the impact if after 6 o'clock, when there's no parking restrictions on any of these streets or time, that there's still going to be a lot of parking? So regardless if we changed it during the daytime hours, would that really impact what the concerns are in terms of lack of parking?
So the parking study from a couple of years ago did indicate that parking is fairly impacted there most of the time. I don't have it right in front of me, but I do recall that it, up to 85, 90, maybe a little higher percent most of the time. I have written to one of the appellants and asked her, if we can meet, after this is all said and done, and see what we could do out there to really assist them in what's the best for that neighborhood.
Okay, and then Steve, to you, I know rules have changed over the years, and the existing houses / duplexes on the west side of Shaver Street. As I drove by there, I believe it was one, maybe two of those houses that actually had any off-street parking in the form of like an uncovered carport. And I would assume that none of those, when they built those houses, off-street parking wasn't a requirement because those are there. And now that that's been in play, now that we have the new rules in place, do we monitor, or is there anything that the city does to those current owners or tenants or landlords that say, when you rent this place out or you lease this place out, that you that you need to let everybody know that it's off, on-street parking only, that there's nothing available? Because I would imagine in a lot of the concerns that were raised, they were saying, okay, we've got 7 units and there's 6 of those are 2-bedroom, master bedroom units. And it's going to be maybe a bunch, making assumptions that there's going to be multiple cars per unit. So there could be upwards of 19 to 20 some odd cars. I would assume that would hold true for the existing buildings on there right now. And they're under no requirement to provide for additional parking or anything like that. If there's a 2-bedroom duplex or a 2-unit duplex, there might be 5 or 6 cars for that one building, and we have nothing to be able to say about that currently, correct?
No, that's correct. Like anywhere else in the city, public parking is a first come, first served type of benefit. And correct, it cannot be earmarked, it cannot be reserved. So the neighborhood has had the luxury of being able to have that access to that public parking for some time. And now it looks like now that the 4th Street, the West End Village is starting to get activated, now there's more interest in parking in that neighborhood as well. Because it is available, it's first come, first serve. So, but no reservations.
And to follow up on Councilmember Gamblin's question about the existing developments, assuming they were legally built with no parking, they would be considered legal non-conforming and could remain as is. If they were ever to redevelop, they would have to meet current parking requirements. So if they were to be tore down, built new, they'd have to meet the requirements of today or at time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others, let's turn to the appellant. Lindsay, can you help us?
Sure can. Donnie, are you here and present?
I am.
Hey, Donnie, you want to go ahead and turn your camera on?
Okay. Did it go on?
No, not yet. It's coming. There you go.
Lindsay, if you could, how many will be speaking on behalf of the appellant?
There will be one speaker on behalf of the appellant for a total of 10 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Am I good to go? Hi, my name is Donnie Azarski, and I live on Latham Street. My family has owned property in this area for over 40 years, and I have lived there on and off for the last 25. I teach at the Marin Waldorf School currently. I've been there for 14 years.
Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, Donna, but some of us are having a little difficulty hearing you. Can you speak more loudly or maybe closer to?
Is there some way to adjust the?
That's better.
That's better.
That's
Okay,
better.
it's not closer. Okay, just closer. All right. Should I start again?
No, you can continue from where you left off.
Okay, I think I just got done saying I have been a teacher at Marin Waldorf School for 14 years. And this is actually the first time that I've gotten involved in any sort of local government, I guess because it's hitting really close to home. As I prepared to speak with you, I researched the City of San Rafael website, and I came upon several videos by the city manager speaking about working together and how to transform government so that communities could have more input and engagement with city decisions. So I am here to request that this project be reevaluated. I actually agree with infill housing. I'm a fan of high density housing, so long as it aligns with the current reality of where it wants to be. This project does not align in any way with what we have going on here. There are very real challenges in this neighborhood that have been here for a very long time. Parking is one of them, but the safety on the 3rd Street corner is actually the largest safety issue we have is on the west corner for a wide swinging car from 3rd Street, because we have so many children that go through the neighborhood and they wait at that signal to cross over 3rd Street. And it's just a matter of time before some wide swinging car corresponds with when they are there. And we're going to have a travesty on our hands. And that really concerns me a lot. The parking is never been easy. It has not been easy for the last 20 years that I am aware of. And I would like to show a slide presentation for you to help you understand the neighborhood from my perspective. So Lindsay, can you start that? So this is Shaver Street around 1887, and the Shaver planing mill is it is currently where Shaver and First Street are. So there's a beauty salon there, and that is where all of the siding came from for Marin County as they were building their houses. The historic map shows 1887, and you'll see that there's 3 buildings on the corner of Shaver and Latham. The top 2 buildings are buildings that my mother bought back in 1972. They are 115 and 111 Shaver Street. And then you'll see, I'm having a hard time seeing my slides, so I can talk to you better. You'll see that I've fuzzed a yellow patch with an orange arrow. That is the approximate location of where 104 wants to be. The reason I put this slide in here is because I wanted to show you the original creek bed. So this project is very close to the original creek bed. Next slide. This is an aerial view. You'll see the downslope from 3rd. The yellow arrow is pointing at the house to be demolished. Shaver Street, you'll see, has a little red car on it. I just wanted to familiarize those of you that may not frequent this area very often. Next. I tried to create a comparison. The house that will be taken down is there, and I tried to build a picture or size the picture of the new development in relation so that it's not exact. Please, I'm not an expert at this, but I just tried to show how much space in comparison the new place was going to take up. And you'll see that the stairway extends very close to 3rd Street. Next, please. This is a picture of driving down from upper 3rd Street down to the middle of 3rd Street. You can follow this slide best if you look at the white car parked on the right-hand side, so you get a relationship to what's happening. Next, please. So now we're close to the corner and you still can barely see it. And within 1 second, it takes about 1 second before you arrive there that you can actually see the corner. The tree that has the telephone pole sticking out of the top of it, that is where I estimate in my best guesstimate where the edge of the stairway is going to be for the new building. Next. This is from the city website. It shows that this corner has shown up in your collision maps as a dangerous corner with broadsides, rear ends, side swaps, and vehicle pedestrian accidents occurring there. Next, please. This is a picture that I took just the other morning. Please follow the white van that's at the corner trying to make the turn onto Shaver Street, and notice the black van behind him. The white van almost got hit. The black van had to swerve quite dramatically because the white van could not turn. Do you see the little white pickup truck on the corner? Do you see the little blue car that is there, and the white truck in front of the little blue car is totally making it impossible for that van to turn onto Shaver Street? Next, please. Luckily for the van, the little white car next, I guess that's the east side of Shaver Street, pulled out, so the van finally had room. But in the meantime, his back end was hanging out on 3rd Street. Next, please. This is a map that I got from Safe Routes to School. I spoke with someone there, not asking for their help. I just wanted to find out what routes they would suggest. And she described to me that they do not suggest children use the Shaver Street crossing of 3rd Street in the morning because of that 70-degree turn. The visibility is hard to see. You have to crane your neck, stick your head out and crane your neck. Ironically, or not maybe, that the headlights that you see in the picture, I was to prepare to present to you, I was walking the neighborhood every morning at 6:30 because I wanted to take pictures of the numbers of parking spaces that were available during the morning hours before anybody had left for work. There was never more than 1 or 2 parking places on all of Shaver, Latham, Hayes, all the way to F Street. There was never more than 1 or 2. So I was out there with my camera to take pictures, and I just happened to be crossing the street when I heard a squeal. My camera was in my hand. I'm in the crosswalk. I lifted up and I captured this picture. That's how wide the cars often swing when they're leaving 3rd Street to get onto Shaver. And that's exactly where the children wait to cross at that signal. I am so concerned that somebody is going to really be damaged or injured at that corner if this doesn't get a real safety impact. Was it traffic impact assessment? Is that what you call it? Next, please. So I put this slide in. This is actually the architect slide showing vegetation. And the vegetation on Shaver Street is going to block the visibility of the driveway. People trying to get out of the driveway are not going to be able to see when a car is going to be from 3rd Street is going to try and make that right-hand turn. The trees along the edge of 3rd Street are out farther than the current trees are, and I also believe will impact the visibility of drivers that are waiting to cross over 3rd Street from Shaver Street. Next, please. So this I took from the general plan on the website, and this was 2020. And we have been zoned, from what I understand, Steve Stafford told me, I think it was like 1993 or something, that we were zoned in this way. And in the planning, in the paperwork that went to planning, I thought I saw that this was a 0.13 acre parcel. And I heard earlier testament that that wasn't exactly the dimension. So I would like that to be investigated, because it said, I thought it said so in planning, but if it is a 0.13 acre parcel, it's eligible for 1.95 to 4.16 housing units. And I really believe that with the expansion of the footprint, every single side of the boundary has been expanded with because of these density bonus rules. I understand the state of California is forcing us to make it easy for developers to build these places, but it does not mean that we have to put places in places that don't fit. This place is too big. I have no problem with the aesthetics. I love high density housing. I think it's a great solution. This location is being so maxed out. It's not respecting the neighborhood, and it's not respecting actually the fact that this is kind of a little like a glass slipper of a parcel. It's a little triangular piece that a duplex or a triplex could sit there so sweetly. This is really asking, I believe, far too much of that piece of property. Next slide, please. So this is from the Downtown Parking and Wayfaring Finding Study from the City of San Rafael, and it indicates the parking as of July 17th. You'll see that the parking along Shaver and Latham, Hayes, and F are The only green is on Hayes Street, and the reason that's green is because those are all driveways. Nobody can park there, so there was no cars there, I'm sure, when the study was done. So that would also have to be red, because those places, any places there, there's 2 of them, they're never open. So this is from the city of Santa Fe. Santa Fe has recognized that this neighborhood has been severely impacted by just a glut of parked cars on the streets, and adding more is going to really have a downward effect on the neighbors that live there. So I think that there's street parking, and that it's ample is such a myth. It really is. Next, please. I also spoke about my concern about runoff. Now, the white shape is the existing building. The red shape is the proposed building. The orange shapes are driveway and like a walkway up to the stairs. And then the yellow space is permeable land. The only bioswales that are going on this property, so far as I understand, are along Shaver Street. I think there's 432 square feet of bioswales. I would like to figure out how much rainfall runoff is generated. Am I out of time?
You are.
Okay. Next slide. I'm just going to let you read these. Next. 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 And next. One more time if I have time.
Thank you for the presentation, and we'll now turn to the applicant.
Okay. Good evening, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to consider our 104 Shaver project once again. My name is Mike Larkin. I'm the architect of the project. We've had occasion to present 3 different times to the design review board. Each time we got many constructive suggestions and comments, critiques, and I think we've incorporated them well into the design. We've also, in late April, presented to the Planning Commission, received more comments there, and but more than anything, have worked for nearly 2 years with planning staff and presented ideas and listened. And today, I think we actually have a very appropriate housing solution located on a unique urban site next to this major thoroughfare, which is 3rd Street. The site is not a homogeneous neighborhood of houses, but a mixed use neighborhood bordering on the downtown. Each orientation of the site gives a different character. So we have, apartments and houses on one side. We have a large industrial building and large parking lot on the north. We have large commercial buildings on the east side and car-oriented businesses on the south side. Because of this border character, that's why the site has the high zoning. And what was the reason my client bought the property was the high density zoning. We shaped the building and programmed to respond to these conditions that we observed in an appropriate way. For example, the shadows cast by the building generally will fall onto the empty parking lot to the north. The proposed building is 3 stories high. It's roofs are relatively gently pitched. It's somewhat underneath, it's below the height limit of the neighborhood. The configuration of the building gives a great deal of usable outdoor space to the residents of the new project. And the building shape lends itself to collection of solar energy. The apartment massing responds to the dynamic shape of the site, I believe. The program is 7 apartments of modest size. They range approximately from 800 square feet to 900 square feet. One of the apartments is a below market rate unit, and one apartment is at ground level and is designed to be accessible and is immediately adjacent to the accessible parking stall. Overall, the design intent has been to reduce the scale of the building by breaking down the massing and break it down in such a way to complement the configuration of the lot. After the design review board feedback, we refined the building exterior materials and detail and looked at combinations of material and color. And I think we arrived at a very nice solution. The apartment building has no lobby, shared interior corridors, so it makes it very compact to sit on the site in that way. The front doors are directly accessible from the outside, like a city flat. Landscape architect Michael Cook has developed a landscape scheme that integrates the outdoor design with the building design. I noticed in the slide presentation, we weren't seeing the actual landscape plans. We were just seeing the schematic, but the landscape plans show the planting in much more detail. From the neighbors, we've generally heard comments about, the car parking and the traffic issue. We're showing the 7 car spaces, including the accessible van. It's definitely been the most challenging aspect to the design, just simply because of the shape of the lot. Our initial idea was to try to access directly from 3rd Street, and that was very quickly dissuaded by the Department of Public Works. They just for safety reasons, they did not want us to do any type of entry or exit from 3rd Street. I've never proposed any change to the parking along 3rd Street, so I was a little puzzled why that came up, that made the statement that there was no parking there, because every time I go there, I park on that lane on 3rd Street. But we don't propose any change to that. That would be beyond with the DPW master plan. From the very first planning application, pre-application meeting, we've been interacting with DPW, and the final parking layout was approved by Department of Public Works, and the parking location as well, where we remove the 1 parking stall and provide 6 protected bike spaces. And the intention really being to promote downtown housing. That's just one small way of getting the extra unit. We wish to keep this extra density unit, as we believe it's important to provide, an extra unit to respond to the housing needs of the. As I mentioned before, the apartment units are about 800 to 900 square feet. They're not; these are not enormous luxury units. They're, just compact units. We have heard some concern about drainage and high water table of the area. Clearly, the area is developable. There's large buildings in every direction around that site, but we did do things such as, you'll notice there's no basement, there's no lower level to the building. Even the parking garage, you do not slope down to go into the garage. Everything is at grade level. So really, the only excavation are the footings of the structure. So we've kept that to an absolute minimum. But really, the design of water management for the site building is largely beyond this phase. When we enter construction documents, we'll be working with our civil engineer, landscape architect, waterproofing consultant. So it's really a highly technical issue of managing water, and somewhat beyond where we are right now. We just have obviously the schematics of the retention areas. In summary, we believe the project has benefited from the positive improvements fleshed out through a nearly 2-year long design process, interaction with the design review board and the planning staff and planning commission. The site is a very unique one, both because of the adjacent land use and the lot shape. It's a very urban site adjacent to downtown. We believe we've proposed an appropriate and attractive design for the site that answers the need for good housing design. And I'd be happy to answer questions that you have. Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation as well. Before turning to public comment, City Clerk, could you give me some indication as how many are queued up at this point?
I believe that right now we probably have a handful that just haven't have their hands raised yet until we call for public comment, and then we have a good amount that have been submitted through YouTube. I would say about 16 or 17 submitted through YouTube as of right now, and about 6 callers that don't have their hands raised yet, but they are on the line.
Okay, with that, it's now 8:30. I'd like to take about a 7-minute break, and we'll come back to hear from the public.
Perfect. If everyone could just turn their microphones off and turn off their videos, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're ready.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the City Council meeting of Monday, June 1st, 2020. We're on agenda item number 5A, appeal the approved 7-unit multi-family residential building at 104 Shaver Street. We've heard from the staff, we've heard from the applicant, and we've heard from the appellant. We'll now turn, unless council members have a comment at this point, we'll turn to public comment. See no council members, let's go with the public comment.
So if you are participating by telephone and you wish to speak, please press *9. And while I wait for participants to press *9, I will also request that you submit all of your comments through the YouTube live chat at this time as well. Okay.
And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind, remind those that wish to address us of the time limit.
Yes, all members of the community are able to speak for 2 minutes, and I'll have a timer. Once the 2-minute clock has passed, I will mute you, and at that point, you'll be able to hear my timer, and then I will allow you to speak again. Did someone just receive a notification that they've been allowed to speak?
Yes.
You're up. You're welcome to speak for 2 minutes.
Oh, good evening. This is David Levin. I'm the co-chair of the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative. We're a group of advocates across the county working to build support for projects in affordable housing, as well as the environmental integrity value and importance of social justice. And we submitted a letter yesterday asking the council to uphold the unanimous decision by the Planning Commission and the Design Review Board to approve this project, because we believe the concerns about traffic, parking, and drainage have been mitigated, as also explained tonight, but wanted to draw the connection to our current national crisis that was precipitated by a criminal justice tragedy, but also directly connects to housing through the issues of equity and access to opportunity. There was a very powerful statement issued today by former President Barack Obama, and I wanted to quote just a couple sentences from that, because he pointed out on the criminal justice issue that it's the elected officials who matter most, who work at state and local levels like you. And the last sentence in his statement today, President Obama challenged us to engage in, quote, a peaceful, sustained, and effective action, so this moment can be a real turning point in our nation's long journey to live up to our highest ideals. So let's get to work, he said, and that's the end of the quote. But we wanted to thank you for your attention to the important social justice issue here and the people who need this housing and who it will serve. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hi, I live directly across from this proposed development, and unlike the last caller, I won't attempt to shame people into making a decision on this, but there are some real issues with parking that have not been mitigated at all, and in fact were not taken seriously in the first case, the second case, or the third case. And I don't know if that's out of the Planning Commission's lack of sympathy for the current residents or ignorance of the parking situation. I was happy to see some of the council members really bring up some of the real dangers of the area. In the last 2 weeks, I've witnessed 2 rear-end collisions at Shaver, coming west on 3rd Street. Both extremely dangerous. A 1-ton truck rear-ending a Toyota Camry that was trying to turn right, and so the fact that this stuff hasn't been taken into account, in my opinion, by the Planning Commission, or has been glossed over in favor of pushing this project forward is disturbing to me. The fact that they're asking for a variance of a 5-foot setback to a 0-foot setback on 3rd Street means that making a right off of Shaver to go west onto 3rd Street will be even more precarious than it currently is. There is almost zero visibility, and that's why there's a 3-foot fence there, so you can attempt to see traffic coming down that hill, barreling down that hill. And on that corner, turning right from 3rd Street to go north on Shaver, currently there are 2 parking spots where the proposed driveway would be. Right now, that's already dangerous at that corner. And in the original meeting and plan where I spoke before, there were strong concerns by the council about there not being enough room in that parking garage for vehicles to turn around, especially a vehicle that's designed for a disabled person. And so
Keep going.
I've been unmuted again, so I'm not sure if I should keep going. But there are strong concerns about those cars still backing out onto Shaver Street with all of that traffic backing up. And as we've seen, there's parking on that corner on the west side of Shaver. And so basically cars go 3 wide at that intersection of Shaver and 3rd. And so I do think a right-hand turn lane on 3rd Street, turning right to go north on Shaver would help. But any vehicle that's not a compact vehicle that's there will cause either a backup or a collision. And so there's been no, all these mitigating factors, and we're doing research and we're planning to do stuff for 3rd Street, doesn't address the current issue with parking there. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the units don't have off-street parking, but it's also punitive to the existing residents by just saying that.
Comments. If you could wrap up your comments, please.
Sure.
And I didn't get your name.
Additionally, my name is Jay Marshall, and we were promised that the construction vehicles had use of the AT&T parking lot. We've had no assurance that that's going to be the case, which would cause even more issues. And to just say that, oh, you lease the place or you own a place that doesn't have off-street parking, and so tough luck, that's kind of a bitter pill for us to swallow. So thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is Joe Uzarski. I've been living at 1 Latham Street for about the past 5 years. With the 13 master bedroom units, the 7 off-street parking spots, the elimination of 2 existing on-street parking spots due to the new driveway means that we're going to need about an additional 8 cars parking on the street there. We got 7 spots provided, but we need 8 more, so where are these cars going to park? I know that there's a statewide housing crisis and that this project has been granted certain automatic housing bonus densities. So is there nothing that the city of San Rafael can do to show some compassion, some benevolence to the residents that live with this parking problem? This decision affects the residents forever. But with the city council, you guys change every election cycle. It's another different group. I'm also thinking that the residential parking system, similar to the one in San Francisco, would be very beneficial. And also rescinding the 2-hour parking restrictions on 3rd Street and make those spots available for the residents as well would be a good idea. The coronavirus issue has also caused problems with these virtual meetings. Some people, I'm sure, have not been able to attend. And I'm just hoping that the motions will not be approved by the city council until they've, carefully deliberated all of this stuff. So please do the right thing for the residents, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi, Mayor Phillips and council members. This is Linda Jackson calling in. I am calling on behalf of the Sustainable San Rafael, and I am a neighbor and a beneficiary of living in a new unit that was built with council's approval at G Square. and we just love living in downtown. It's a walkable, sustainable way of life. Sustainable San Rafael supports the 104 Shaver Street project. It's going to provide 7 new housing units in San Rafael, and an ADA accessible unit, and a very rare 2-bedroom, affordable to very low-income household unit. We respectfully ask for your denial of this project. New housing, especially small infill projects like this one, further the sustainability of our city by diversifying housing opportunities near downtown and near transit. The reasons this project were appealed have all been mitigated. The on-site parking will meet the needs of the units, so it won't be like adding more units to it. Eliminating curb cuts are always a good thing. The parking impacts with the pre-wiring for EV charging is fabulous. The secure parking for residents' bikes is something that we need in every project. And the site is within walking distance to transit, service, jobs, and shopping. And we know from McStop's work throughout the city and the county that it makes a difference in flooding issues wherever it's implemented. So that's going to be an improvement with this project. These are all addressed during an extensive 2-year review process. The project was unanimously recommended by the Design Review Board and unanimously approved by the Planning Commission as consistent with the city's plans and zoning. There's a need for investment in housing now more than ever in downtown San Rafael, and we urge you to adopt the resolution denying the appeal and upholding the conditional approval of 104 Shaver Street. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council members.
Thank you, Linda.
Yes, this is Neil Bloomfield. I live at 25 Shaver, and I work at 901 East Street. So my life basically exists going back and forth past this Shaver Street project many times a day. I sent a email letter that I think is in the record. Shaver Street is not a viable street for the traffic that it gets. 2 large vans not pass going in opposite directions. And if there's parking, it's even harder for them. They have to find a way for one to pull over before the other can go. So traffic is always congested on Shaver, and some people are more sensitive to it, some less. So when I turn onto Shaver, I kind of feel like I am taking my life in someone else's hands. And I think it's very dangerous. And adding more and more cars to Shaver and more traffic to Shaver is not a good idea. Plus, the decrease in available parking is going to threaten the bakery at Ponsford's, which is a lovely, charming feature of San Rafael, which if people can't park to patronize there, they'll eventually go out of business, which would be another loss. I also have the misfortune, hopefully temporarily, of being disabled because of ankle surgery. There's no handicapped parking on Latham. It's very hard to get spots near my house, and I can't really walk very far. I have to use a walker or a crutch. As I say, hopefully that's temporary, but it's making the neighborhood less friendly to disabled people, even though it's adding 1 disabled unit. But those who are disabled and already live here will have a lot more hardship. I don't think the applicant has shown adequate support for all the variances. Variances are special privileges.
Thank you, Neil.
And so I don't think they deserve the variances that they've requested unless they lower the density quite a bit. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
For your comments.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi. This is Victoria DeWitt.
You're breaking up pretty badly. I don't think we can quite understand you. Lindsay, would you suggest she call back, or what should she do?
Yeah, I would suggest you may want to call back, and as soon as you do, I'll be looking out for your telephone number to press *9 again. You are cutting out pretty badly. Yeah, you're still cutting out. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Josh Townsend. I'm speaking on behalf of the San Rafael Chamber. The Chamber is requesting the City Council please deny the appeal for this particular project. As you all know, the Chamber has made the production of housing units, new housing units, a top priority focus. And we are strongly supporting housing production attainable by our local workforce. We do recognize the need for more housing is crucial to securing our economic future. And we feel that this project is very close to transit. It's near jobs, and it's been designed very well to fit within the neighborhood. As mentioned before, it was passed unanimously from both the Design Review Board and the Planning Commission, and it's taken over 2 years to have this go through the process. The Chamber strongly urges you to reject this appeal and allow it to move forward. The city is really desperate for projects like these type of infill projects. And this particular development is well thought out, and it's in a location that is ideal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Hello, am I supposed to speak now?
Yes.
Yes, please. Oh.
Yes, please. My name is Armida Scapazzi, and I live on Latham Street. I've owned a house here for 30 years, and I am so concerned about so many aspects of it. It has been very difficult to listen to how people say there's no problem with parking, there's no problem with safety. It's very disconcerting to have the Chamber of Commerce, who I love as an organization, stand there and try and say, there's nothing wrong with this project down at this corner. Guys, it just needs to be smaller. I absolutely would like to have housing down at that location, but they are not providing enough parking places or safety for the kids walking by, or dealing with the traffic on 3rd Street, and you make a turn lane only there, and you're going to disappear the few parking places there are. They're right there. But the reason nobody parks in those parking places on 3rd Street next to this location at 104, because if you try and get out of your car, if you park on 3rd Street coming down that hill, you try and get out of your car, you're going to have your car door swiped off by the cars that are driving 30 and 40 miles an hour down that hill. Has anybody thought about that? Have they looked at that? If you guys actually approve this as an appropriate housing for this small area, which, by the way, did you know that Latham Street was actual original downtown San Rafael? Right? We are an old historic neighborhood. I want housing. I'm all for housing, but 7 units in that spot is just flat wrong. It doesn't fit. You're forcing something in. I know we need housing. Desperately, we need housing. But that, in that space, not an okay space. I've owned a business on 4th Street. I've been here for 30 years. That spot does not fit 7 units. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And I need you to understand that those of us that have lived here for this long feel passionately about it's not safe for the people that live here to walk around. I walk around a lot now. There's a lot of people walking around now. It is an unsafe area to walk around because of the number of cars that go up and down that street fast without places for people to pass by.
Thank you for your comments, Armand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, my name is Lydia Lee, and I live at 109 Shaver. I've made a lot of comments tonight. I'm very frustrated. So we're looking for low rents, but we don't have any idea how low the rents are going to be. There's no structure to that. I don't know if you've looked at rentals in San Rafael or Marin County, but there's no such thing as affordable housing here. And there doesn't seem to be a limit on what they can charge. So my second point is Infrastructure. We don't have infrastructure to support high density housing. My friend's daughter took the bus from the transit center to Tierra Linda High School, and it took 2 hours. So that is not what infrastructure should look like, or how we get around. This is not Paris. This is not London. This is rural Marin County. And we may want to have what they have in the city, but we don't have it yet. And I think that the children's safety on our street should be of utmost importance. If a child gets killed and we have passed this, we are all responsible. So I think that we really need to look at the safety issue. The last thing I'm going to say is, yeah, it's really great that they're going to look at parking. I've lived here for 10 years. They haven't ever looked at parking. It's been the same the whole time. And when are they going to do 3rd Street? In 2025, 2030? It's going to be 2 years for them to build the project. And where is all the construction people going to park? Because when they were doing the new water project down the middle of our street, we were locked out and we all had to park on 3rd, and we got tickets because we would forget, because we're at home, that we have to go move our car every 2 hours. So we need to have some. This isn't mitigated in any way, shape, or form. Thank you for your time, and I hope you'll say no, that it needs to be redesigned.
Thank you for your comments.
I believe.
Oh, hi. Okay, can I speak now? Is it me?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. This is Victoria DeWitt. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I live in the West End neighborhood.
Victoria, I'm going to cut you off. Could you mute your computer? We're hearing you twice because of the YouTube feed.
Oh, you want me to mute the computer?
Yeah. Or just turn the volume down. So pause the video.
I'll go to another room. I don't know how to. I just wanted to say that they're offering 3 compact spaces or 4 compact spaces out of 7 spaces, and that is 60% of compact spaces, not 50%. And I don't know of your experience in shopping centers, but all kinds of people park in compact spaces, and then nobody can access the adjoining space. So I don't think there's any requirement that the tenants actually have compact cars. Someone can have a large car. And so I really think that those parking spaces will be problematic. I think that the project should be smaller. I'd like to see it be more compatible with the Latham Street design, and I think it should meet the parking requirements. The other thing I wanted to ask was whether there had been a current survey on the property. I know someone mentioned something about the size of the acreage there. We found in my neighborhood that there was a project that was using the square footage for the site from the Marin County Assessor's Office, and it was totally incorrect. So there should be a current survey on the site. And that's all I can think of now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I see no more callers who have their hands raised. So if you are still on the line and you haven't provided 2 minutes of public comment yet and would like to, please press *9. And while I do that, I will go ahead and read the public comments that we've received through YouTube. My name is Chris Solberg, and I have been a tenant at 109 Shaver Street for 10 years. Parking has always been a problem on our short block, but has grown worse in the last few years. This project, with 13 master suites and 7 parking places, will make that even worse. Oops. Due to the narrowness of the street and the fast-flowing downhill traffic on 3rd, the Shaver 3rd Street corner has always been dangerous. We had 2 accidents there last week. The large scale of this project and the encroachment onto the corner will only serve to exacerbate the problem. Finally, the Latham Shaver neighborhood is of historical significance and serves to remind us that Centerville has history, charm, and a community feel. To build these large modern buildings in the face of this neighborhood is an affront. I feel that we are losing the historic charm that brought me and my wife to Centerville some 12 years ago. The east side of Shaver Street is not downtown to us. Go big downtown and near the transit center if you must, but don't destroy our charming and historic neighborhoods. David Langsam. I lived at 109 Shaver for 3 years and have lived in Centerfell for most of my life. While I applaud the design of the proposed unit at 104 Shaver, parking is a real and significant issue. I understand that Centerfell needs more housing, but if we do that at the expense of quality of life, then I think we are making a big mistake. More housing does not mean better living. Imagine coming home at the end of the day and having to circle the block for an hour before a parking spot opens up, or inviting friends over for dinner and not have a parking space for them. Shaver Street is already too narrow for existing traffic, and 2 cars cannot pass each other. Significantly increasing traffic on that narrow street is a dangerous proposition. Thank you for your consideration. Carol Page, Shannon Salmo. Unfortunately, the staff report has couched the council's alternatives in adversarial terms and omitted the opportunity to satisfy both the neighborhood and the applicant by seeking a less dense project, a project which adds housing without so intensely and adversely impacting the surrounding community. Wisdom and compassion bring successful change. Zoning standards or guidelines cannot be inviolate absolutes. I urge the council to demonstrate the Centerfell's mission includes honoring and respecting its residents' expressed concerns while moving with reasoned progress to meet housing challenges. Name withheld. I live on F Street and I'm a special education teacher in Centerfell. I have huge concerns with parking in my neighborhood. Name withheld. Hello, thanks for the platform. I support reevaluation of 104 Shaver Street project. Please respect the actual location where this apartment plans to be. I live across the street at 105 Shaver. I share every sentiment that Donnie laid out. In addition to all these clear concerns, where will the construction vehicles going to park? Name withheld. I live directly across the street from 104 Shaver, and I'm in support of the appeal for these reasons in this order: safety, parking, and watershed. We did receive a public comment. However, the speaker did provide 2 minutes of public comment over the telephone. Diane Henderson. Please uphold the unanimous action of your planning commission and deny the appeal for the 7-unit project at 104 Shaver Street. It has been nearly 2 years since the applicant first started the pre-application process, and it is time to construct much needed housing on this downtown parcel, which is consistent with general plan and high density zoning of this site. Centerfell Chamber. Please uphold the unanimous decision of your planning commission and deny the appeal. This project has been vetted and all concerns addressed. It is consistent with the general plan 2020 and downtown the parking and wayfinding study. It is close to transit and jobs and fulfills the dire need for workforce housing in our city. Thank you to the Public Works Department to make this project work and address how we travel about our community in an innovative way. My name is Sunny Lee. I have a business at 5 Latham Street, and I have to travel to this location very frequently. When there's over 89 opposition or concerns, why staff not accept issue? When the planning department doesn't take neighboring residents of this building is quite concerning, as the staffs are not investigate further and not accepting to possible hardship for the residents. To Steve Stefford, please do survey of residents from Shaver and Latham and find out what residents and vehicles for each property. It's not difficult to find out. It's quick survey to do. I also was in many rear-ended situations turning onto Shaver from 3rd Street and even turn hazard signal on when a vehicle speeds very close to my vehicle along 3rd Street. Bike parking space instead of vehicle parking space is useless. Due to bike theft in downtown Centerfell, even with locks, it gets stolen easily overnight with metal cutters. Name withheld. Street parking is still not alleviated by these changes. Queuing on Shaver already happens frequently. I have seen 3 accidents in the few years I have lived here. Agree, if cars are parked on 3rd, turning in Shaver is dangerous. I have trouble parking in the evenings and weekday afternoons. That scenario with the van happens regularly. My name is Sarima Pennant. I live on 5 Latham. People who work downtown often park on Latham and Shaver and makes less parking spots for the people who live in the neighborhood already. I'm concerned about the safety of DMS kids biking or walking to Shaver every day. Name withheld. Please observe how fast cars come over that hill on 3rd Street. Slowing on the block to turn onto Shaver is indeed dangerous. Name withheld. There's no way this development should be allowed unless they have more than enough parking for all their tenants. Many children come from Sun Valley and other neighborhoods, walk and ride their bikes through this area. Wait, Tress on 3rd? That's crazy. Parking and traffic are the problem. 7 apartments is way too much given the area. Even the number 7 implies they are trying to pack in too many units. Name withheld. Thank you, McCullough, for bringing this up. There's already not enough space to safely make a right-hand turn onto Shaver, as visibility will be a huge issue, making more dangerous. Thanks, Gamblin, for that comment. That is true that the turn is extremely hard, sometimes to the point of not being able to turn fully right when there's a car waiting at red at Shaver and 3rd. Name withheld. The parking is used by businesses during the day, local housing by night. Can someone explain why it must be 7 units and not 4 to 5? Name withheld. As a resident in the area who grew up here, anyone from Centerville knows that stretch is dangerous and the neighborhood parking is already maxed out for the people who live there. My name is Betsy Ann Gallagher, and I support reevaluating this project because of parking, safety, and quality of life issues. Name withheld. This project does not supply adequate parking. 6 of the units are marketed as dual occupancy, 2 masters with bathrooms. This, in all likelihood, means 12 vehicles for this complex. Sunny Lee, I do understand the city and planning department's desire to meet the state ordinance to achieve higher density housing quota ordered by state. Please do not just ignore residents. Name withheld. What does traffic engineer have to say to address these parking and maneuvering issues raised by the current residents? These concerns must be addressed or mitigated or sustain appeal. Give me one moment. We've got a couple more coming in on YouTube. Read that little writing at the end. Okay. And I'm going to complete that last comment that I made. I'll reread it. There was a sentence that I missed. What does traffic engineer have to say to address these parking and maneuvering issues raised by the current residents? These concerns must be addressed or mitigated or sustain appeal. At least don't cite the residents parking on 3rd Street. That concludes the public comments that we received through YouTube, and I still see no virtual hands raised. I'll ask one more time, if you're on the telephone and you wish to provide public comment, to please press *9. I'm seeing no hands raised. Still seeing none. That concludes the public comment portion of this item.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I'll turn back to council and close public and come back to council with regard to questions of staff or comments, starting with Councilmember Bush.
I have questions. I have a question on the parking regulations, and I have a question on the density. So I'll start with the parking regulations. I think this is for Jim. Several commenters talked about making the 2-hour parking on 3rd Street available for residents. What hours are those sites or those parking spots available without limitations outside of the 2 hours? I thought it was 9. It was only applicable from 9 to 6 Monday through Saturday. Is that right?
I believe that's correct. You're at 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday is our current practice. I think that's what we do down there.
So then at all other times, the residents can park there without limits, correct?
Right. They can park there without limit. Yes, you are correct. Anytime outside that, there is no time limit. They can park there before that, but you are right. After 6, there are no additional time limits. So the parking spots are available to the residents, other than during those hours with limitations. They're available to anybody. Yes, that is correct. They are available to residents after those hours.
Great. All right. Thank you. I'm now moving on to my density question. This is probably for you, Rafi. I was looking through the part. I thought I heard, maybe it was Steve or you, say that the site was about 1 acre and that there could be up to 40 units there. But in the appellant's presentation, the site was described as 0.13, a tenth of an acre, about a tenth of an acre and only 4 units were permissible by our regulations. Which one of those is right, or is it a different number?
Yeah, so the discussion about the almost 1 acre was in regards to the adjacent property, the AT&T site. That was just to explain that that's a housing opportunity site. This is next door to that. This particular property is 0.14 acres. So by local zoning, the maximum density on this property is 6 units, based on 1 unit per every 1,000 square feet of land. Now, I believe it was in the appellant's presentation, she made reference to the maximum density based on the general plan being 2.1 to 4.48 units, based on a 15 to 32 unit per gross acre. That is correct, but the key differentiation is the word gross. For general plan purposes, our general plan uses gross calculations for density because it's looking at density over large swaths of land. So that includes the streets, parks, and other public facilities. So gross density is usually about 30% less than net density. Net density is what's left on the actual private property, taking out the public streets and counting for the public infrastructure. The zoning is what regulates net density, and the maximum net density for this property is 6 units.
And then the 1 bonus unit.
Correct. And then because they provide the required affordability, they're actually eligible for 3. They've only asked for 1 bonus unit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions. When we're ready for comments, I have comments as well.
Thank you. Councilmember McCullough.
I don't have any questions. I'm just ready for comments whenever the time comes.
Okay. I don't see other, excuse me, I do see. Councilmember Gamlin.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm for comments as well. No further questions.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Mayor Collin.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So we heard quite a bit of public comment regarding speeding on 3rd and turning and recent vehicle mishaps there. So I was wondering, and I know we talked about this ahead of time, but if we could talk again, maybe Rafat will answer what we can do to address those issues, and is part of that solution asking the applicant to modify the vegetation in terms of sight lines. I know there's a lot of data. I know there's a lot of knowledge behind that I don't have, but when I do hear that there's been continued mishaps there, I would like to know what our options are.
Thank you. The options that what I was thinking about, with the difficulty of the turning from 3rd Street onto Shaver, there are techniques where we can prohibit parking during peak hours. The parking is already 2 hours parking. We can make a section of it to guarantee a safe haven for someone making a right turn. Regarding the safety at the intersection, actually, Lauren Derini did the research, and we've had 6 collisions between in a 5-year period before 2016. So 2011 to 2016, we had 6 collisions. Only one of them was a rear-ender. And we did the analysis for 2016 and on. There are also 6 collisions, and they're not related to that movement. So the frequency of the collisions that was presented in public comments, I'd like to investigate more. When the appellant showed a safety showing that Shaver was shown as a highlight or a troubled intersection, I don't think that fact is accurate. And I apologize, the graphics was fuzzy and I didn't catch on the period that she covered when she looked at the collisions. And I would like to make a comment about the whole the idea about the existing condition around this particular development they exist with or without the development. So the development is adding 5 peak hour trips to the whole equation. So I think in terms of the impact of this particular development, it's truly insignificant, and the size of this development does not trigger any major public improvements. One more thing that I would like to add about the line of sight that was presented in one of the graphics. Michelle was working very hard with the community development, and they really toned down the development to make sure that the most of the available line of sight is provided with this development. The setback was shaved back, and only hardscape and low vegetation was purposely designed to address the line of sight. By code, the line of sight is not required at the signalized intersection, meaning that if a driver going southbound doesn't feel comfortable for any reason making that right turn, they can wait for the traffic signal, and the traffic signal will give them the green light, basically. So, I hope that, I'm sure there is a solution to the existing. I heard many comments about the parking in the neighborhood across the street from this proposed development. Shaver Street is 32 feet wide. So naturally, when we load it with two parking spaces on both sides, we're talking about less than 9-foot lane available for traffic. And that by itself is the nature of the street. That's how it was designed many, many years ago. So there are inherent issues with the width of the street. And this concludes my comments. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, no, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question that I've been to the site. I was there today, in fact. I've read the comments, certainly the staff report, and it's problematic for a number of reasons. But my question is this: there's an existing structure. I'm not sure I'm addressing this to anyone that can answer the answer, I guess. There's an existing house there. It's rather large. I wonder how many occupants are there currently. Anybody know that? Rafi, do you by chance? Put you on the spot.
I believe it's a single family home. How many occupants are actually in there? We probably would need to check with the applicant. They may have the current number of people living in there. We actually need the number of people in the unit, correct?
Well, I'm really looking for the incremental increase. It's not suddenly 7 units from zero. It's 7 units from current occupancy, including vehicles, etc. So I'm really trying to measure, to some degree, that incremental impact. And I don't find that in the current staff report nor comments that have been made. So to me, that's of interest, let's say.
So yeah, so what I can tell you is it's a single family residence, so that's 1 unit. But in terms of the number of people in cars, maybe the applicant has that information that they can share.
If so, I'd be interested.
Presently, I don't believe there's a family living there.
Well, let's say when there was occupancy.
Yeah.
What was the configuration?
I don't really know that answer. It was a family, but I don't know the number, so wouldn't want to say something wrong.
Okay. Okay. Let's open up for general comment, leading to conclusion by council members, starting with first person to turn the mic off. Starting with Councilmember Gamlin.
I guess I beat everyone to the punch. Thank you, staff, for the very detailed report, and I understand that this has been going on for a long time. Through I don't purport to be a design professional or a planning person that knows all the ins and outs of all the zoning codes, and that's why we rely on the professionals that we put on our boards and commissions who have that background to give us the expert information so that we can make these decisions. Because there's, as with most of these, they're never easy. But what I look at when I look at this project, we all have made it very clear as a council that the city needs more housing, and there's needs for more opportunity for infill housing, because there's not a lot of space just to build brand new housing. So this fits that bill right there. Currently, my understanding is the house is vacant, and it's been vacant as long as the project owner, I believe, has owned it in anticipation of building this new place there. We hear from the appellant and those who support the appellant that parking has been an issue for a long time. It currently is an issue. I don't see this property as exacerbating an already existing issue, because as Steve pointed out, these are public streets and public parking that is available to anybody. Regardless if this building was there, it seems like all the spaces on the street are pretty much occupied 90% of the time, not only by the residents in Shaver and Latham, but also by folks that are, frequenting the merchants around there, 4th Street, 3rd Street, the commercial buildings, that it's open to anybody that wants to park there. The fact that the applicant is building 7 units and providing parking for those units, I can't say that whether or not just because there's 2 bedrooms that there will be an instant increase of double that amount of parking. And I would imagine that anybody that is buying or renting into this place that knows that there is only 1 parking space per unit assigned, that they're going to take that into consideration, whether or not they're going to want to rent there, knowing that the parking, and you can easily see it by driving on the street, that it's going to be challenging for any additional cars, just like it would be for the people that are currently there. So I don't see that is an additional issue that would counter the positive that we're getting on a very nice, aesthetically pleasing building that is filling a much needed deep need for quality housing in our downtown, that is walkable to our downtown, that is near transit. I understand the concerns of the neighborhood, I do, but I also understand the concerns of the city and that we need good quality housing. And so for me, while it might not be perfect, and I don't know that we've ever seen a perfect project, it is a really good project, and I put our trust into the fact that our design review board and planning commission reviewed this extensively and all came to the unanimous decision to support the project. So that will be where I will be going tonight.
Thank you, John. Maribeth, Councilmember Bushy.
Yep, I agree with everything Councilmember Gamblin said. I probably would have switched the order and focused on my reliance, having spent a great deal of time on the Planning Commission and worked very closely with DRB. Their unanimous approval has a great deal of sway with me as well. So I definitely support denying the appeal and upholding the project. That said, we've heard a lot of testimony tonight about dangerous traffic situation at the corner of 3rd and Shaver. The leadership of our Public Works team is largely here, and I hope that they're listening and carefully taking note and will be incorporating and actually just sharpening their pencils and putting on their thinking caps to come up with interim measures that we could take. For example, extending or limiting parking on some of the parking places closest to Shaver Street so that there can be a sort of de facto right-hand turn lane. Ideas like that are easily implemented and that can enhance safety are something that we would like to see implemented as soon as possible. And in the redesign of 3rd Street, more permanent solutions adopted to achieve safety at that intersection. But in summary, I support the project.
Thank you. Councilmember McCullough.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if Vice Mayor Collin had pressed the button before.
Well, I was trying to.
That's fine.
Cross race.
Yeah, so I think I end up in the same place as my two colleagues who have spoken, Councilmember Gablin and Councilmember Bushy. But before I indicate why, I do want to pause and acknowledge what is very unusual about this appeal. In the course of my 9 years on the council, we've entertained a number of appeals. And to be quite frank, several of them have verged on frivolous. This is not one of those. I'm impressed not only by the number of people who have stepped forward to express concerns about the project, but also the reasons for those concerns. And, you know, when I first heard about this appeal, before I visited the site, I thought that this was just the usual NIMBYism, trying to prevent a project from being built for very selfish reasons. After visiting the site, I drove it several times, and then today I actually stopped and walked the neighborhood. And my view is very different. I think that what the residents are pointing to are longstanding problems that they would like to see solved. And I think that the outpouring of opposition here is the product of years of frustration that we, in combination with our residents, haven't found a better way to address these concerns. The reason why I end up supporting, that is, opposing the appeal, supporting the project, is because I fundamentally don't think that the project is going to be the basis for the perpetuation or the significant exacerbation of these problems. Will it contribute? I suppose so, but I think it's a fairly modest contribution to what is difficulty with traffic and parking. And so my view, and it's been said by my colleagues, is I would task our public works folks and parking to look more closely at the traffic and safety issues that have been raised. And let's see if we can find a way, before we get to a final solution for 3rd Street, let's find interim measures that help ensure safe turning onto Shaver. And whether it's extending a turn lane and removing parking to accomplish that, or some other solution. Let's also see if we can engage more closely with the residents and work with them on, we have a residential parking permit program that's on the books. And if the current program is not susceptible to being applied to this particular neighborhood, then is there a way we can alter it so that we find better solutions on residential parking? I think we need to do something to address the concerns that have been raised here, but I don't think we need to sacrifice what is otherwise a good project in order to address those concerns.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Collin. Vice Mayor Collin.
Thank you. So I concur with everything that my colleagues have so eloquently stated, and I'll just add a few comments of my own. The first is to thank the folks who have engaged on this issue. I think the appellant said this is the first time that she has engaged with the city, and this is what makes our city great, is that people come out and they talk about what's important to them. And as Councilmember McCullough had just indicated, this is really indicative of some other issues going on in that area that need to be addressed around parking and circulation. And I also want to recognize there were some comments about the not ideal nature of having to conduct city business over Zoom. And I think we all recognize that. And I give hats off to our city clerk who makes it work as best as possible. The reality is this is the world that we find ourselves in, and we are going to continue to have city business move forward. We know, if anyone watched the video at the beginning, the shelter in place and these types of ways that we're going to interact is going to be here for a long time. So we are always open to continually improving, and again, having the Facebook comments and having people call in, I think is a great way for people to engage. And the other part is, I think I mentioned our last meeting, is people are able to now call in and participate, and they don't even have to take their slippers off or leave their house. So I'm hopeful that as we get through this, that more and more people will continue to engage. Regarding the project specifically, as I frame it and think about it, it comes down to trade-offs. Land use is always about trade-offs, and both the mayor and Councilmember Bushy know that, because we've all been planning commissioners in previous lives. And so we're always looking at what are the trade-offs for this land use. And we talk about parking, which in one way, a crass way, you could say that's housing for cars, or you have units, which are housing for people. And our council has continued to be supportive of finding housing for people. And 7 units here and 10 units there and 4 units there, and that starts to add up over the years. And so with this trade-off, this is what infill looks like. And so I'm not ignoring the input that I've heard from the neighbors, but it is a trade-off that I come to a different conclusion when I look at it that way. I also visited the site several times. I'm surprised I didn't see the mayor and Councilmember McCullough there today as we were all driving around and looking at it. And I second and third and fourth the recommendation that our DPW and traffic really need to take a hard look at this area to not further exacerbate what is going on. And as we're doing the timing in a way couldn't be better because we're working on the 3rd Street corridor project right now. And what are the traffic calming measures that can be done to ensure that this is improved and not further exasperated. And finally, I will mention I am the Safe Routes to School liaison, and the 3rd Street is an area that we've talked about a lot. We're hopeful that when those improvements are done, that we will continue to have, or we will have, a safe place for our students to get from one part of the neighborhood to the other. And we're always in conversation. We, being in the city, and DPW, as well as the police, have always been in conversation with Safe Routes to School to really look at the best routes for our students. And so that dialogue will continue regardless of whether this project gets built or not. But in closing, I concur with my colleagues and would support the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
And thank you, and certainly thank everyone for the comments made, public certainly, and the summary comments by council members. It's always a little difficult going last because you've covered so many points, and I think you've covered them well. So what more can I add? I can only add that I have visited the site, and I frankly, I was troubled by the fact that we're compacting even more cars, and living units are a good thing. We're in favor of that, generally speaking, but it is awkward, and frankly, this is not going to make it better, but perhaps worse. Although, as I think it was Andrew McCullough mentioned, incrementally, perhaps somewhat negligible, and I think the staff could concur with that. In fact, they made that statement, so I'm going on that premise. The point was made with regard to DRB and the Planning Commission, and I hold both groups in high regard. They have expertise, and they've gone into this project in considerable detail, and I respect that. The fact that it was unanimous on both sides, I think, sends a clear signal as well. So while it's a difficult, more than I anticipated, quite frankly, in terms of difficulty making the call on this one, most are, but this is maybe more difficult than most. But I will concur with the sentiment of the council members and also staff recommendations. In addition to planning and design review board, it seems fairly overwhelming in terms of community approval from each of those respective groups with different vantage points, but concluding the same, that it's probably appropriate. I'll share that. I'll share that sentiment. And so with that, I would entertain a motion with regard to this item. If anyone's ready, now would be the time to do it.
This is Andrew McCullough. I move that we reject the appeal and adopt the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0, and thanks once again to everybody for wrestling this tough one to the ground, and certainly taking into consideration the important points made by everyone, including council members, with regard to improving this area as much as possible, because it certainly needs it. I think we all agree with that. Let's move on now to the next agenda item, which is 5B, Paramedic tax rate for fiscal year 2020-2021. And Nadine, looks like you have a staff report for us.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm joined here today by Chief White as well, who will be assisting with any questions that you may have. I'll be talking to you about the paramedic tax, so let me just pull up a short presentation. All right. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Okay, I'm assuming you can all see this. So we have already taken the paramedic tax discussion to Finance Committee, and we've discussed it with the 3 other service areas. The paramedic tax was originally approved in 1979, and through that approval, the original ordinance allowed for City Council to set the rates based on budget recommendations from the city manager up to the maximum ceiling of the tax. This tax was also approved by 3 separate jurisdictions: County Service Area 13, County Service Area 19, and the Marinwood Community Service District. The tax itself is basically, it makes up 61% of the paramedic fund program, with the remaining 39 of revenues coming from third-party medical billings, along with Medi-Cal cost recovery programs, which consist of grants. It's approximately $8.4 million in revenues for the next fiscal year is what we're projecting with the increase, and it supports 18 full-time equivalent firefighter paramedics, the construction of capital projects, the purchase of vehicles, equipment, and supplies, and of course, 24/7 emergency response service that includes a paramedic on every engine. The current rates for the residential areas in San Rafael, CSA 13 and CSA 19 are $95 per unit. For Marinwood, it's $85 per unit. The current rates for non-residential units for San Rafael, CSA 13 and CSA 19 is 13.2 cents per square foot, and for Marinwood, it's 11 cents per square foot. Through prudent financial management and the pursuit of additional revenues, this tax rate has decreased on average approximately 0.8% per year since 2012. Very low. So we are proposing this year for the next year, based upon rising expenses outpacing revenues and future projections, staff is proposing a $4 increase for the residential unit and a 4/5 cent increase per square foot for non-residential properties in San Rafael. The 4/5 cent increase per square foot gets San Rafael up to the maximum ceiling. And with the proposed rate of $99, there's still a $9 allowance to increase in future years. This recommended increase was a planned increase, and now with the COVID-19 financial crisis, this recommendation is in line with the city's COVID-19 economic recovery plan. Marinwood, CSA 13, and CSA 19 have unfortunately all hit their caps, and therefore we can't recommend any additional increases. With that, staff recommends that council accept the staff report and pass the ordinance to print. I'll open it up.
Yeah, thank you for your thanks for the report and the respective background of the others. Comments, questions would be appropriate at this time. Councilman Gamlin.
Yeah, thanks Nadine for the report. I know we've discussed this a number of times in the Finance Committee, so I appreciate the work you put into this. It is a little bit frustrating, and I know we're working on it, that the CSAs and Marinwood are capped out, and we rely on them to vote themselves to increase that cap, where the city and the city residents are absorbing a larger percentage portion based upon the fact that we have a higher cap. So my question is, I know you're working with Chief White and Marinwood and Mayor Phillips to look at these things. When we're doing longer range planning for the next fiscal year and the fiscal year after that, what do we anticipate the potential opportunity to increase those in the CSAs and in Marinwood? Are we looking at less than a 50% chance of that getting done these days, or where do we stand on that?
So I will defer to Chief White for this, but from a financial perspective, I am not including in my forecasting that the three agencies or jurisdictions will have an increase in the next year or two.
Chief White.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Phillips and council members. I've been in conversation with Mr. Dan Eilerman about CSA 13 and 19 just recently, and also with Eric Drykeson regarding the Marinwood circumstances and both of their caps. And I think the question for them is really a matter of timing and appetite for any increase. And so that may be the bigger question here. If anyone really right now is ready to go in and vote for an increase, even a modest increase such as the one we're proposing. So certainly there's conversation on the horizon regarding this, but I just don't have any definitive information. I do know the last time that it appears Marinwood went to vote on this some years back, they were roughly 50% or 52% was all they had close to the 2/3 requirement. And so that obviously fell short. But this is something I think we'll strongly advocate for to make sure that there's equity here in the way we're handling the tax across the CSA, San Rafael, and Marinwood. I think it's only fair to ask that everyone pay their fair share, and it's an equivalent share across the board, given the fact that they all have reached those other agencies and CSAs have reached their current cap.
Thank you. I'll just comment, not seeing others, that we have discussed this in the Finance Committee, and it seems self-evident, but certainly seems, in my mind, troubling, I'll say. I could use perhaps a different word to express my feeling about this, but troubling that there's a disparity in providing the service of equal quality in the regions with a differential in the amount that our communities are contributing for this the service that is equal, if you will, within the community. So it does bother me, and I would suggest that as part of the motion, if you so desire, that you instruct Councilmember Gamble and myself to have a discussion with Marinwood. It may or may not be the most pleasant of discussions, but I think it needs to take place with the disparity growing, assuming this passes tonight, even more so than in the past. And if nothing else, an opportunity to express our concern about this and the fact that we're not, speaking for myself and perhaps all of us, depending on the motion goes, not at all happy with this consequence. So in any case, with that, why don't we see if there are any public comments? And Lindsay, I can't see you, so I don't know if there are or not. Oh, Nadine, do you have the public comments?
No, I don't, but I just wanted to add something, if that's okay.
Sure, please do.
Okay, so if we were to increase all three service areas to $108 per unit and then
Right.
14 cents per square foot, we would be receiving an additional $104,000 in revenue annually.
Certainly needed in these economic times, and I would suggest that Marinwood is able to cover this additional cost, as is, I'll call it San Rafael, being the balance of the area. So it bugs me. In any case, public comments? Any?
Give me one moment. If you are participating by telephone and you wish to provide public comment, please press *9 now. We have one caller on the line, and while I give them time, I'm just going to wait about 10 seconds to see if anyone on YouTube would like to provide comments. I see no comments on YouTube, and checking back on Zoom, I see no comments by telephone either.
Okay, we'll close public comment and return for follow-up or a motion with regard to this item. Councilmember McCullough.
Yeah, I move that we pass the ordinance to print, but I do so subject to the comment you made earlier that the Finance Committee take a closer look at this and engage with the critical stakeholders here to see if we can encourage those in the CSAs and Marinwood to make the changes necessary to ensure equity here across all of our ratepayers.
Thank you for that. Do I see a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Roll call, please.
Andrew, if I may I ask that you read the title of the ordinance, please?
Yes. The title,
Paramedic tax rate for fiscal year 20.
Thank you. So read.
He needs a little help. We understand.
I'm trying to pitch in here.
A little slow here.
With that, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
My matter carries 5-0, and thank you for the report. We'll turn to other agenda items. 6A, providing small business support for outdoor activities during COVID-19 emergency.
Hi.
Danielle, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I will promise I'll make this short. I know it's getting late in the evening hour, and City Manager Jim Schutz did a great job of kind of talking a little bit about the program that's before you tonight. But what we're asking for, Council, is your help in making this response to COVID-19. It's complex and it's constantly in flux to meet the new round of shelter-in-place revisions for outdoor dining and sidewalk retail. As we move into phase 2 throughout the state and specifically in Marin County, our small businesses are struggling to stay afloat, and anything that we can do as far as fee waivers and making programs as simple and easy for them to take advantage, the better they can at being adaptable to what's coming next. Tonight, what we're looking for is kind of 3 main areas. One is in the fee relief for the sidewalk retail and outdoor dining. We're looking for creating opportunities for future street closures. Right now we only have a couple days highlighted. We would come back to council for anything more significant, but the ability to take advantage of street closures to help individual commercial district areas. And then we're also looking at future flexibility to utilize our parking spaces and streets to help businesses reopen and meet the social distancing requirements and mandates as part of the public health and safety orders. I wanted to specifically highlight the Department of Public Works, who is helping spearhead this permit process, our Department of Community Development, Digital Services, our legal team, and the City Manager's Office, who really all come together with an all hands on deck approach and a can-do spirit to let's help our individual businesses get through this and our community get through this. And so I want to thank them for standing up an entire intake process in less than a few days. It was truly an honor to work with the team, and everybody realizes we all have a hand in the recovery. So I want to appreciate them. I also wanted to just say that, before we go into questions, we have the team who's here to help answer any questions you may have on what we've highlighted in the report. We have Public Works Director Bill Guerin, Deputy Public Works Director Rafat Ray. We also have Community Development Director Paul Jensen, Assistant City Manager Christina Lilovich, and myself. And before I conclude and open up to questions, I also want to highlight the San Rafael Chamber and the Downtown BID, who've been really working with businesses to just get a sense of what's the interest level, what kind of things can we do to help assist and get them back on track. And so with that, I will open it up to the council for any questions.
Okay, very nice report. Questions? Vice Mayor Collin.
Yes, thank you, Danielle, and for all the staff members that you named that are working so tirelessly to support our businesses and get them back, opened up. I just want, actually, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. So as a representative, one of the city representatives on the Marin Recovers Steering Committee, I've been privy to a lot of the conversations that are going around regarding the reopening. And I just want to point out that what we're being asked to consider tonight is councils all over Marin are looking at this same type of ordinance. So this is not a one-off, and that is really thanks to the Marin managers that are sharing this type of information because we are trying to move, the collective the cities and towns are trying to move so quickly. So I just wanted to add that it is in conjunction with what not conjunction, but it is something that other cities and towns are doing.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, let's turn to public comment.
If you are participating by telephone and you wish to provide public comment, please press *9. And I do see one caller. *9. Did someone just receive a notification to speak? I'm gonna mute you, and then I'm gonna unmute you so you can maybe hear that notification one more time. Is that what I sound like?
Okay.
Are you there?
Hi, this is Ida Lochte. Are you speaking to me? Yes.
Hi, Ida. We're getting a little bit of feedback from the YouTube video, so if you can step away for a moment, that will make it easier for you to concentrate on your comments.
Okay, I've just muted the YouTube video, and there's a delay. So I just wanted to say thank you to all those departments that Danielle just referenced, Danielle and all of the city departments that I know have been working tirelessly to help rescue our small businesses, restaurants, and retail downtown. And just want to thank you for getting it all done by today, to get it online and make it free and fast and automatic, and to be able to think outside the box for any future street closures or parking uses. And also to thank the parking department for the 15-minute pickup spaces, 4 in every block, that they put up so quickly to help for the pickup. So thank you, everyone.
I see no other callers on the line. I do have a YouTube comment from the Centerville Chamber. Thank you to the city manager and his team, specifically the Planning, Public Works, and Economic Development Department, to make this easy, fair, and free to obtain a temporary permit. This shows a true commitment to our business community. The Chamber looks forward to working with the BID and city staff on getting our business engaged and participating. And that concludes public comment.
And we'll close public and come back for comment. I'll just quickly comment that appreciate, Daniel, you and everyone you've made reference to approaching this as a team effort to do all we can do under the circumstances to improve our business situation that's been troubling and trying for many businesses and, of course, the residents that rely upon them for various goods and services. So it's been difficult, but I will give credit certainly to you and Jim and the others with regard to particularly the permit process. You have nightmares about government taking too long and too complex, etc. This is as it should be, painless and immediate, and I think those are good things, particularly under these circumstances. A good friend of mine went through the process and received his approval, if you will, instantaneously. So that's a good thing for him and certainly any others that also apply. So thank you for that. I would ask that the Chamber and the BID come together with regard to recommendation on closure of 4th Street to accommodate some businesses and expanding outside their immediate interior. I think we would appreciate certainly some direction. We can talk about that further as part of the Economic Development Committee. But I think we want to be holding hands on that, so it makes sense to everybody that whatever we do improves our downtown and throughout the city business climate. We want to make sure we make the right decision, but let's do that sooner than later. So appreciate the help with that as well. Councilmember McCullough.
Well, I just wanted to, Mr. Mayor, you pretty much said what I was going to say. I really want to second the efforts by staff to date, and that in delegating this authority, my feeling is there's almost, we almost can't do enough to help our businesses get back on their feet. So I'm very much hoping that staff can continue, led by our city manager and Danielle O'Leary on the economic development side, that we're really forceful in reaching out to our merchants and showing them that we're here to help them reopen and to reassert the vibrancy that has long been a hallmark of our 4th Street corridor. And I'm hoping that what we do here, just as we've retooled so many of the other ways in which we've kind of revised city government, perhaps this is something that lasts. Obviously, we can't go without the fees associated with some of these changes forever, but to the extent that we can pivot quickly here in a time of need, can we continue to pivot quickly in the future when the crisis is past, but our merchants still do need our assistance in a timely fashion?
Excellent point, certainly. And with that, it appears we might be ready for a motion with regard to this item.
Well, I'd be happy to make a motion, and this time I will read it, Lindsay. We adopt the resolution of the San Rafael City Council granting authority to the city manager to implement temporary changes to the municipal code to support local businesses during the COVID-19 emergency.
Excellent job.
Second.
Who would like to second that? Vice Mayor Collins seconds. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collins.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0. We'll now turn to 6B, extension moratorium, memorandum of understanding with Western Council of Engineers. And we have several that are of kind of the same nature. I don't know if you want to take these together or separate or whatever you want to do, we'll do.
Thank you. Mayor Phillips, before I depart, I just wanted to give one more compliment to our digital service team. For without them, we would not have the ease of permitting and really the streamlined simplicity. So I did want to give them a great big thanks from us. And thank you so much, Council. I appreciate the votes tonight.
Yeah, good addition. Thank you, Danielle. Have a good evening. And back to, what was it, 6B, extension.
That is right. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with you, I can give a quick overview of the 4 staff reports that were submitted, or if you'd like, we can do 2 and 2, 2 for the unrepresented groups and 2 for the represented, whichever you prefer.
Whichever would be most expeditious. I think we're ready to move on.
All right. Okay.
So we're aware of them and go for it.
All right. I'll go through all 4 as quick as I can. Okay, so good evening also to the community, and thank you for your time. I know it's late in the hour. My name is Shibani Nag. I work with Human Resources, and I'm presenting 4 staff reports related to extending labor contracts with the Western Council of Engineers, a WCE group, as well as a Local 1 confidential bargaining unit, and then 2 additional staff reports for our unrepresented groups, and finally also request for our city council, Mr. Mayor. So beginning with the first staff report that you see there in the packet with the Western Council of Engineers, WCE. The staff report basically presents a recommendation for council to adopt the resolution that extends the contract with the bargaining group. Big picture, I know we've gone through some of our city finances related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated revenue losses. As such, staff is recommending that all job classes represented by the group receive no wage increases through the contract's 1-year extension, which is through June 30th, 2021. Since the wages are not increasing for this group of 10 full-time positions, there isn't a fiscal impact for this recommendation. In addition to this contract extension, the city has also initiated a furlough provision permitted under the MOU, which enables this group, along with other groups, as you'll soon see with other staff reports across the city, to participate in a furlough wage reduction. The WCE's 3% furlough will result in an annual savings of approximately $28,000. Similarly, moving on to the second staff report from our Local 1 confidential group. The second staff report recommends similar terms, extending the contract here by 1 year. This group has 6 full-time positions within the group. And also the staff report, as you'll read, recommends no wage increases, as well as participating in the citywide furlough. Local 1's 3% furlough will result in an annual savings of about $15,000. Moving on to the third staff report for our unrepresented groups. And by unrepresented, we mean the city's unrepresented executive management group, the mid-management employee groups, as well as our elected city clerk and city attorney. Staff is recommending that council adopt a resolution approving a year's extension of compensation resolutions. Like our represented groups, staff would recommend that our unrepresented groups receive no wage increases. In addition, that the groups participate in a 5% furlough, which will result in approximately $230,000 worth of savings. And finally, Mr. Mayor and Council, I appreciate your ongoing support and leadership in this as well. Staff is recommending that the council also partake in to withhold 5% of monthly compensation. I realize that council takes very little in monthly in stipends in general. And so the approximate savings to the city is only about $1,200, representing that 5% of compensation. And that is for the fourth report and recommendation. And so we appreciate your support and leadership through all these challenging times. I know it's been very hard. The city's been working very closely with all of our groups, and we sincerely appreciate their understanding and their collaboration as we work through these contract extensions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks for your report, and it's quite frankly, it's painful to go in this direction. We have outstanding employees. We would all agree to that, and we're very, very fortunate. And it's most troubling to have to go through this, but we appreciate the fact that our employees have recognized the situation we find ourselves to no fault of ours, just like many of the businesses we've made reference to a moment ago. But it is a fact, and it's personally it's troubling, but it does seem to be necessary. We'll address questions, public comment, and then we'll come back for a motion. Any comments? Seeing none. Public? Anyone from the public?
If you are participating by telephone and you wish to provide comment, please press *9. And if you are participating or watching on YouTube and providing comments, go ahead and submit those in the chat box. I will state, just because we are hearing 4 items at once, if you have comments related to a specific side letter, agreement extension, please go ahead and indicate which one you're referring to in your comments. I see no hands raised.
Okay.
And I'm going to give about 10 more seconds for YouTube.
Okay.
I see no comments. Thank you.
We'll close public, come back for comment. See, Councilmember McCullough, did you have a comment or a motion?
Just a short comment.
Sure, please.
I just want to say that as to the last item, none of us on the council does this for the compensation, the modest compensation that is afforded to us. And we all find ways to take that modest compensation and in significant ways give it back to the community. That said, I do want to acknowledge one of our number, John Gamblin, who doesn't receive any compensation by serving on the council. So giving back 5% of zero is zero. Even though his zero is zero, he's still giving back significantly. So I would be very impressed and would show real gratitude here, John, if you were the one who were to move on these resolutions, particularly the last one.
Well, I don't know. You've outlined certainly, but I don't think John has taken a reduction. So,
Well, exactly. There's an irony there.
Any case, let's, good comment. And let's take these one at a time, if you would, please, with a motion on 5B, which would be the adoption of the resolution. Who would like to offer that motion? Councilmember McCullough, looks like you might.
Well, sure.
I'm trying to get the right wording unless Mary Beth wants to read this for me.
Nope.
Go ahead.
You get to do the last one. You get to do the fourth one.
Okay.
Okay, then as to item 6B,
yes.
Then I move that we adopt the resolution approving an MOU side letter agreement between the City of San Rafael and Western Council of Engineers.
Second.
Move in second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries. On to number C, or letter C.
I move that we adopt the resolution approving an MOU side letter agreement between the City of San Rafael and Public Employee Union Local 1 Confidential.
Second.
Move in second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
That matter carries 5-0. Extension resolution unrepresented employee groups. Motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution approving a 1-year extension with modifications of the terms of City Council resolutions number 14539, 14540, and 14541, establishing compensation for the unrepresented executive management and mid-management employee groups and the elected city clerk and city attorney.
Thank you.
Second.
Move in second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0. Now, John, you're up.
Here we go. I move that we approve the resolution directing the city manager and the finance director to withhold 5% of the monthly compensation of the mayor and council members during fiscal year 2020, 2021, and to donate those funds to the city's general fund.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Everybody seconded.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry, Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye. And that matter carries as well. Bonnie, thank you so much for your report and the work you've done to bring us to this point. So thank you. Thank you once again. And with that, I guess we have council members' reports here somewhere. Here it is. Any council members' reports at 10:15? Seeing none, we'll move on. No successor agency report, and therefore we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Good job.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night,
everybody. All right. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.